Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's public hearing. Before we get started, please turn off your cell phones and other devices to avoid any interruptions. If anyone present is planning on presenting testimony, please sign the sheet in the rear back of the room if you haven't done it already. Anyone wants an opportunity to speak tonight, you will have the time to do so. Please step up to the podium when it's your turn and make sure you clearly identify yourself for the record before you begin your testimony. We request that you please keep your testimony focused on the relevant issues and facts for each application. Please remember, these hearings are to allow for members of the public to speak on issues related to land use applications, not to air grievances about each other or your neighbors. We will not tolerate or allow testimony that is hateful in nature and will stop your testimony if it delves into a statement other than people's character. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, the 15th day of January. The time is 6 o'clock, as set forth by the public hearing. All three commissioners are present. Are there any changes to the agenda, Madam Clerk?
No, there are not.
There are no changes to the agenda, so we'll kick this off with the first item on our agenda. It's new business. It's application. I'll open a public hearing on application 2024-02138 ZPA ZOA, Ada County Development Services. And we'll have Stacy present this to us. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just trying to share the screen here. This new. Oh, there it is. Okay. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Stacy Dupree with Development Services. The item before you tonight is Project 2024-02138 CPA-ZOA. This is for a comprehensive plan amendment to adopt updates to the Meridian Comprehensive Plan as amended March 5th, 2024, for use within the Meridian Area of City Impact and a zoning ordinance text amendment to Title IX of the Ada County Code. This update would amend the 2019 Meridian Comprehensive Plan currently adopted for the Meridian Area of City Impact and the Ada County Comprehensive Plan. As there has been significant growth and change within the Meridian Area of City Impact, the update to the Meridian's Comprehensive Plan will more accurately reflect the current conditions and goals and future goals of the city. In December of 2021, the City of Meridian approved the Field Sub-Area Plan in Northwest Meridian. The area is bound by Ustick Road, McDermott Road, Chinden Boulevard, and Canada Road, and is approximately 4 square miles in size. It is envisioned to continue to grow the employment base. Oh,
For some reason, it's stuck on that slide, so let's.
okay, hang on, sorry.
Sorry, Commissioners,
Technical
one second.
I'm seeing a good plan, but apparently you guys aren't. Sorry about that.
You had screen last time?
But then I went to window. Because it's not
Let's try
in.
that.
Okay.
Okay, I think you're good now. So you can still use the arrow.
Okay. All right, we'll try this again. Sorry about that.
Well, I'm glad we got an IT guy here to help out.
Hopefully, yeah. So the Field Sub-Area Plan is envisioned to continue to grow the employment base and integrates high-quality neighborhoods, parks, pathways, and schools. A central mixed-use activity center will serve as a hub for surrounding neighborhoods and as a future element of the plan. All right. In October of 2022, the City of Meridian approved the Existing Conditions Report 2022. This report serves to provide a framework for future decisions by detailing the current state, directions, and actions taken on each section and element addressed in the comp plan. That's Meridian's comp plan. The report reflects the growth that the City of Meridian has seen with updated estimates by Compass for future growth projections through 2050. In March of 2024, the City of Meridian approved updates to the mixed-use sections of the comp plan. The city has 5 different mixed-use designations within their comprehensive plan, which include neighborhood, community, regional, interchange, and non-residential. These designations are designed to provide for a combination of compatible land uses within a close geographic area that allows for easily accessible and convenient services for residents and workers. The intent is to promote developments that offer functional and physical integration of land uses, to create and enhance neighborhood sense of place, and to allow developers a greater degree of design and use flexibility. The application as outlined in the findings of fact and conclusions of law show that the required findings have been made to Idaho Code and to Ada County Code. There were only 2 written comments received, and there were no objections to this application. Staff recommends approval of application 2024-02138-CPA-ZOA. This presentation will be included and added as Exhibit 19, and I stand for any questions.
Any questions from the commission? No questions? Okay. Well, thank you. Is there anyone here signed up to testify? I don't see anybody. Anybody want to testify on this? Anybody online want to testify?
There's nobody online for this.
Nobody online? And there's nobody here that wishes to speak on this issue? Well, you're pretty good.
Hey.
Okay. All right. Any other additional documents you need to add to the record before we close the public hearing?
Just the exhibit, or this presentation is
Okay.
noted.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a quick question to staff. So when the Meridian City went through there, they had a similar kind of public interface?
Yes, that's correct.
Very
Yes, they did public hearings and had several meetings before all of these adoptions. So yes, they have gone through all of that process. So now they just wanted to, because we adopt theirs, just get ours updated so that, because there's a lot of development, especially in that northwest area, and they want us to definitely have the most current plans and just information so that we can be, cohesive in those applications that we get that involve their areas, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I will close the public hearing on application 2024-02138, CPA ZOA. That application being closed. What's the pleasure of the board?
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve application 2024-02138-CPA-ZOA, Meridian Area of City Impact, based on the conclusions of law, findings of fact, and the presentation from the city of Meridian of what they have done to approve it at the city level.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
You've heard the motion. Any further discussion from the commission? Hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now take up application 2024-00187 SPR Peafowl Ridge subdivision. We will have Amelia give us an update.
Chairman and Commissioners, project number 2024-00187-S-PR is a preliminary plat and private road application to create a 3-lot subdivision. The property is located at 5278 North Gooder John Lane and contains approximately 29.6 acres in the rural residential district. The surrounding uses are mostly rural residential use and public lands. The property is mostly surrounded by Eagle city limits, and the boundary of Eagle's area of city impact brushes the southwest corner of the property underneath the Farmers Union Canal. City of Star can also be found further to the west of the property. Most of the property is outside of an area of city impact. The current lot configuration has 2 lots being 10 acres and the last lot being 9.6 acres. The discrepancy is due to when the original 1/16 of the section was created, it was intended to be 40 acres, but due to early surveying errors, it was measured as 39.6. In 2022, a one-time division application was approved to create the current configuration, which is the 29.6 acre parcel and a 10 acre parcel. Due to these early surveying errors, staff finds that one of the lots can be allowed to be slightly reduced to accommodate the total lack of 40 acres at the start. The application also includes a private road which will grant frontage to Lot 1 and 2 by improving the historic driveway into a private road that originates off the cul-de-sac on North Gooderjohn Lane, which is public right-of-way. Lot 3 will be granted access by extending West Notting Hill Lane private road, which was approved during the one-time division application. The property contains a large amount of steep slopes, as well as a special flood hazard area AE running through the property. Since there was a previous floodplain permit issued that included a letter of map change submitted to FEMA, a new floodplain permit is not required. However, depending on where the new dwellings are located and any grading or improvements done, there may be a hillside development or floodplain application required in the future. Some key conditions of approval include that any further grading to this historic driveway may need a hillside or floodplain permit. The plat will need to comply with the standards of the Wildland Urban Fire Interface Overlay District, which includes the fire protection plan to be approved by Star Fire and the turnout on the private road spaced no more than 700 feet apart. The turnaround for the private road will also need to be included on the plat. The private road connection to North Gooderjohn Lane will need to comply with ACHD's standards. A land development application will need to be approved by Central District Health. The Ada County engineer also has conditions regarding the wells and groundwater testing. Staff is recommending approval of the project, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted at their December 5th hearing to recommend approval to the board as well. This presentation will be known as Exhibit Number 49, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions of our staff from the commission? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, is the applicant here?
The applicant is online.
Okay, does the applicant wish to say anything?
One moment, please. Okay, he can speak.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name and commissioners, members of staff. My name is Randy Wall. I'm a professional engineer with Professional Engineering Services located at 5636 North Portsmouth Avenue, Boise, Idaho. And I'm here tonight to represent the P-Fowl Ridge subdivision. Before I get started, I just wanted to say what a pleasure it has been to work with Ms. Haynes on this project. She's great. I've worked with a lot in my career, and Amelia is just really great to work with. So thank you, Amelia, for your work on this. I don't have anything to present. Amelia did a great job. I'm just asking that you approve our application tonight, and I'd like to reserve any time for any other public hearing or answer any questions that the commission might have. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you have any questions? Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Wall. My question is, because Amelia, you said you worked with her, and I appreciate the fact that you have worked together well, but just to reiterate in terms of the record, some of the, like the floodplain, the roads, the Central District Health, all those, you are fully understanding that those are things that are going to come into play as you move through the process, correct?
Yes, that is correct. Actually, I've been working on this property for the past 5 years. I did the original one-time division down on the lower right-hand corner. That was the subject of a private road, floodplain, wildland urban fire interface application, hillside application. And we covered all of that with the Star Fire Department. That's the agency having jurisdiction out there. And we did a letter of map revision, a LOMR, with for the floodplain. And so we've covered like all of the aspects of the property out there. This is just a subsequent application to develop the rest of the property. And so, yes, I'm aware of all these things. I don't anticipate we're going to have any of these things come up because I think, but whatever comes up, we'll work with the county. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I don't have anybody that's signed up for this. Is there anyone online or anyone in the room that wishes to testify on this application?
There's nobody else online for this item.
Okay, is there anyone in the room that wishes to testify on this application? Okay, hearing none. Do you have any additional documents or anything that needs to be added to the file?
I do not.
Did you add your presentation to the file?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good enough. With that, I will close the application, close the public hearing on application 2024-00187 SPR, Peafowl Ridge subdivision. Okay, the issue is before the board. Is there any discussion, or if not, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll move to approve application number 202-400187-S-PR, Peafowl Ridge subdivision, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law contained in the staff report and the testimony heard this evening.
I second the motion.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there any further discussion from the commission? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, with that, I will open the public hearing. We'll take up our next application. I will open the public hearing on application number 2024-01958-ACV, Studio H Architects. We will get a report from Stacy Dupas from our staff. Go ahead, Stacy.
Here we go. Okay. Oh, we're not working again. Hang on. It doesn't want to work again, Leon. I don't know what we did last time. Sorry, Commissioner.
IT guy, could you get this straightened out?
Oh, man, I never thought I'd be called that. All right. Yeah. All right, so here, do entire screen. And open this back up.
Okay, see, I still hit window. Sorry about that. Okay. It's not fair to change programs on us. So again, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the record, Stacy Dupree with Development Services. The project before you tonight is 2024-01958-V-AC and is Studio H Architects is the applicant. This project is for a variance to the maximum lot coverage in the Rural Urban Transition District. The property is located at 1357 East Pitkin Avenue and is 1.01 acres in size. This property is generally located north of Amity Road and west of Locust Grove Road. And it's also in the Meridian City of area of impact. As mentioned, the variance request is for relief from the maximum lot coverage requirements, which for the RUT, and this is a cluster because of the 1 acre size, district is 20% for the lot coverage requirement. As shown here on the submitted site plan, the applicant is requesting to be allowed to locate a proposed 3,096 square foot detached accessory structure with a 948 square foot secondary dwelling located on the second floor. This totals 4,017 square feet. The property currently has a 2,944 square foot single-family dwelling with an 890 square foot attached garage, 608 square foot patio, 272 square foot deck, a 910 square foot detached garage and shop, a 1,000 square foot pool, and an approximately 346 square foot cabana gazebo there by the pool, and a 160 square foot shed, which totals 7,130 square feet, or just over 16% lot coverage. With the proposed detached accessory structure, the total lot coverage is estimated at just over 23%, or 10,199 square feet. And again, the RUT district allows 20% lot coverage, so this would be 3% over that. Findings for a variance are that it will not grant a right or special privilege that is not otherwise allowed in the base district. The variance relieves an undue hardship due to characteristics of the site, and the variance shall not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. As to granting a right or special privilege, the applicant is requesting to exceed the maximum lot coverage allowance due to the pool that was constructed in the 1990s being counted towards the total lot coverage calculation. However, there are other properties in the area that also have pools and accessory structures, though other properties in the area do not appear to exceed the maximum lot coverage. Therefore, granting of the variance would be allowing a right or special privilege. As to relieving an undue hardship, the applicant has indicated that having to remove the pool would be an undue hardship for the property owners as a costly and impractical solution. Ada County Code defines a swimming pool as any structure intended for swimming or recreational bathing that can contain water over 2 feet in depth. This includes in-ground and above-ground swimming pools, hot tubs, and spas. And coverage is defined as the area of a property occupied by all structures. Therefore, the pool should be counted toward the overall lot coverage calculation. As to the public health, safety, and welfare, I'm getting ahead of myself. Based on comments received by various public agencies, the placement of the detached accessory structure is not detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. There were conditions if the variance is granted, but there were no concerns. In addition, no comments of opposition were received from neighboring property owners. So, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, staff recommends the board denies project 2024-01958-V-AC as it does not meet all the variance conditions. And this presentation will be added as Exhibit 24, and I stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions from the commission to our staff? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Stacy, so just to clarify, you said the pool as it currently exists was built in the 1990s, you said?
That is correct. 1994, I believe.
So it was what was the zoning ordinance at the time?
Pools were required to get a building permit and inspected,
And it complied then?
and it did comply then, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from staff or from the commission? Okay, no questions. Okay, anything else you need to add?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I have Jesse Heggie. Welcome to our meeting.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Heggie. I'm with Studio H Architects. I'm representing my parents, Jeff and Wendy Bell, for this application. They're proposing a personal use shop. There's no commercial intent, industrial intent for it. The reasoning behind it is my parents recently retired. They have a lot of hobbies, which are toys that you can see in the site plan, and the purpose of that shop is to move the toys from the asphalt parking area into the shop space, which would be a benefit to, I think, the neighbors around it, and as well as make it just a lot easier to use. So one of the items that we did want to address is the square footages. So I'm not 100% sure where all those square footages were. We went and measured everything on site. We have 6,459 square feet of existing coverage, including the pool, which is 750 square feet. So we are proposing, that's 21.6% lot coverage. So I've been doing this a long time. Pools I've never come across a jurisdiction that considers a pool a part of a lot coverage percentage. Structures are typically defined as a vertical element above ground. A pool is concrete, asphalt, it's a landscape structure. So we were very blindsided when we went into the application to find out that Ada County thought that a pool was a part of the lot coverage ratio. And so that is why we are here. If we took the pool out of our percentages, it would put our lot coverage ratio at 19.9%, and we would be within the Ada County. So the pool is a great asset to not only the property values that we pay property taxes on, as well as adding the shop will clean up the site a lot and put a lot of those toys that are out on that site plan you can see now into that space and really clean up the back of that property. So we're asking for the commission to consider a variance that the pool would not be considered in the lot coverage ratio in this condition.
Okay. Any questions from the applicants? Go ahead.
So is there any reason you can't redesign the shop to just make it smaller so that it would fit?
It would have to be substantially smaller at this point, and from the cost of construction and the purpose of it, trying to get some of the items off of the asphalt area, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. There wouldn't be a whole lot of benefit to it. You may be able to get one or two things in there, but the intent is to get all of the items that you can see in the site plan into the shop space.
Looks like there are maybe 5 surrounding properties of neighbors. Is that right?
Yes, that touch the property lines.
Have you talked to all 5? Have you gotten signed statements from any of them that they wouldn't oppose?
We had, I believe, 2 or 3 of the homes around it. One of them was the neighbor to the south. And they really just wanted to know what was going on. They were concerned that it was going to be for a commercial purpose. And when we explained it to them, we walked them through the project, they had no issues with it whatsoever. But no, we didn't get anything signed in writing from any of them. They were on our neighborhood meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So you're familiar with the 3 conditions of approval necessary to grant a variance. How do you propose we get past those?
Yes, so special privilege, the no special privileges, we don't really see a special privilege in this aspect. There's nothing being granted. They're not making money off of it. It's increasing property value. There's just, I don't see a special privilege of the variance. It's just allowing someone to use the home that they've been living in for the last 35 years. Obviously, health, safety, welfare, there's no detriment to the health, safety, welfare of any of the neighbors around. And then undue hardship, I mean, my parents built this house a very long time ago. They're going to live in this house forever. And they're retired, they want to enjoy their life, and without this, it's going to make a lot of the things that they want to do while they're retired very, very difficult. And so that's really undue hardship for them, is they're really just trying to clean up the property, make it usable, retire in it, live in it forever. It's also a reason that it's 1 story, and which contributes to the lot coverage ratio. They added on last year and increased the lot coverage ratio, but they're aging in the home, and so a second floor is really just not a feasible option for them doing that.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a question on the shop that's there, the existing shop. Are you going to keep that there?
Yes, the existing shop, basically when the structure would be built, it would be a single building, so they would be connected, and it would just be one structure at that end of the property.
So then that's considered in the lot coverage ratio.
Correct.
Okay. And you're suggesting that without the pool, that this does fit within the lot coverage ratio.
Correct. We'd be 19.9%.
And you have other experience with these kind of lot coverages, and you've never seen a pool considered in a coverage ratio?
I have not. I'm an architect. I've practiced for 20 years. I worked for a developer all over the nation. I have never seen a pool counted as a structure. In fact, I did some research after we initially found out that Ada County considered it a pool. And I only found some zoning code on the East Coast, and they were very verbatim in their lot coverage that it included pools and spas in the lot coverage ratio. So they were very clear that it was covered in theirs. A structure to me is a building, a patio, a pergola. So that's how we read the code, and would have never considered a pool.
In your experience, a lot coverage ratio is only to be applied to a vertical building.
Something with a roof. Yeah, it's actually physically covering the lot.
So for instance, if the pool had a little patio over top of it or something, then that would be considered in lot coverage ratio.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
By your definition.
by my definition, yeah, a roof. Anything with a roof is what I consider lot coverage. Same thing with floor area ratio, FAR, that we look at zoning code. It's buildings, it's structures with foundations that cover the property, not landscape elements like a pool or concrete or asphalt.
So that's what is typically, a pool is considered a landscape addition?
Correct, and it's not considered part of a lot coverage ratio in any jurisdiction I work in.
So even if it's above ground pool?
Typically, those just aren't even, because they're not perimeter either, so
They're not
they're
per-
just,
no, they're
they're
not
just
perimeter.
there. They're a kiddie pool.
What's the size of the property, the dimension, what's the size of the property, the square
It's
footage?
1.01 acres. It is 43,995.6 square feet.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from, all right,
Mr. Chair,
yes, go ahead.
so what is the pool made out of?
This one is shotcrete.
So it did have to be constructed.
It has to be constructed for sure. I mean, yes, it had to be constructed just like pretty much anything.
Question for staff. Just wondering if staff has any knowledge of whether Ada County is substantially different with this pool requirement than other jurisdictions.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, there are, you'll find a mix across the United States. There's jurisdictions that don't consider pools as part of the lot coverage, but there are others that do. Our code does identify a pool as a structure that counts towards the lot coverage.
Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well, I understand that, why is that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we do issue a building permit for swimming pools. Unlike a driveway, we wouldn't issue a permit for a driveway.
And
So
that'd be considered lot coverage?
the driveway is not. So that's part of the challenge. It's definitely been something that's discussed where it is an interesting conundrum where a driveway is not considered, but a pool is. But a pool does require a building permit. It's permanently affixed to the ground. Our code presently defines it as a structure and counts towards
And a
coverage.
driveway does require a building permit as well?
Driveway does not.
Does not. So that's the element is
That's-
a building permit?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that is one of the elements.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, unless anybody else has any questions? Do you have any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now there's, Mr. and Mrs. Bell is here. Do you wish to testify? Jeff and Wendy. You got a pretty good representative there, I'd guess. Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who wish to testify on this issue? Okay, I don't hear anybody. So, does staff wish to add do we have any documents need to add for the record?
Just the exhibit as noted, sir.
The exhibit as noted. Okay, so that's it. So I'm getting ready to close I'll close the public hearing on application 202-401-958 AC-V. And it's, what's the pleasure of the board? Is there anyone want to kick it off?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll kick it off in terms of, I guess the conundrum is a couple of, in my mind, is one, the pool complied with the code even at the time would have complied with as-built, even with the percentages. That's my first. The second is So that is undue hardship in that sense, if they had to tear out the pool in essence to build the building. The other thing is the neighbors. No one in the neighborhood has a problem with it, so that's another positive in my mind. I'm inclined to support this variance based on that. I know the code is what it is, but I think the undue hardship could apply based on the timing of the building of the pool in the first place.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, I think there's a lot of stretching going on this one, I think. But, I mean, I don't have a problem with them building it. It's just making sure that we meet the legal requirements. And I don't think I'd have trouble granting it, but I think, you know, it might feel better if we had signed statements from the neighbors affirmatively stating that they consented to this, because they would probably have a cause of action if they wanted to challenge this in court. But again, I don't have any issue. I mean, it actually seems to benefit the neighborhood if they could put some of their things out of sight in a covered garage. Aesthetically, that'd probably be better to the neighborhood, but just curious if there'd be any thought of including that they get sign off from the neighbors on this.
Well, that's a new one. I've never heard of that, requiring neighbors to sign off on a land use property.
I recall we've imposed that once or twice over
I
the last 4 years.
Well, maybe we have, but I don't, maybe I'm getting too old and my memory escapes me. I don't know, but I don't remember that.
Well, I guess a clarification from staff and/or the applicant. They did have their public meeting, correct?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, they did hold, or they had record of their public meeting certification, and then also the public hearing notice, the radius notice was set out, within the 300 required feet by staff. So, but there was no comments received back from the neighbors that staff received anyway.
And that is the reason for the public notice and for the radius mailing, so that everyone knows what's going on. So everyone knows what's going on. If there was any objections, that's what we have these public hearings for, I believe.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
that's another question, staff. So do we have the attendance at the public meeting? The number, who attended the public meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I do not recall if they gave us a list of names. We just have the certification show when the meeting was held, what time it was held, and where at it was held, which is what we require.
Correct. Just my point is that if there were people there at the meeting, they were affirmatively agreeing to it. If they didn't disagree to it, they affirmatively agreed to it in a public setting. I guess that was the reason for my question. So, and they did have a public meeting. We don't know how many people were there, but they were given the opportunity to be there if they wanted to be there and express their opinion. Correct?
And again, according to the certification that the applicants submit, that is what it is saying. But of course, staff does not attend these meetings, so
Right.
I cannot verify that.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I think I've closed the public hearing, and we need to move forward. So I'm getting the impression that we might want to table this one for a revising of the findings of fact and conclusions, because I happen to believe it's a hardship. I also believe that, myself, that it's not granting a special right of privilege. These are all large lots, and other properties have equal, not exactly the same, but the lot coverage, if you don't consider the pool. And I'm still struggling with why we consider a pool to be a lot coverage when it seems to be, according to our architect, a landscape feature. But anyway, that's just, so if we're going to do that, we'd need a motion to table for a certain date, or if we're going to reject it, we need a motion for that. So what's the pleasure of the board?
What would be the date if we tabled it? What would be the date?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Daly, we would recommend the January 27th open business meeting.
I'm ready to make a motion then,
I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Chairman, and we approve it first and then table it, correct? I move to approve application 2024-01-958-AC-V Studio H Architects and table it until the January 27th meeting to provide staff the opportunity to revise findings, fact, and conclusions of law.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item up is, I'll open the public hearing on application 2024-02286-CU-MSP-V, KM Engineering. We'll first hear from our staff, Michelle. Go ahead.
What's the trick, Leon?
We got to get our specialists over there to get the computer going.
I don't press that, I miss one.
We'll call you a specialist, not an IT guy.
I did application instead. Okay. And then pull it up. Okay, thank you. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Michaela Owens, Associate Planner for Development Services, presenting Project 2024-02286-CU-MSPV, an application by KM Engineering for a variance, conditional use permit, and master site plan approval for a proposed car wash located at 10619 West Myring Lane. The project involves a request to build and operate a car wash with associated facilities and a variance to reduce the required 100-foot setback from a residential district. For the project location, it's located at 10619 West Myring Lane, comprising 0.86 acres within the Community Commercial C2 district. It's situated west of 5 Mile and north of Lake Hazel Road. Just to provide, also in Boise's impact area. Just to provide a little additional context, here's a close-up of that site, which I'll reference later in the presentation. To provide some zoning context, this site is in close proximity to residential zoning. You can see the commercial zoning located more to the southeast of the property, with residential zoning located more to the northwest. This slide shows that aerial view of the property with that surrounding commercial and residential properties. To go over the project proposal and scope, it's a conditional use and master site plan request with the construction of a approximately 4,700 square foot car wash building, which will include a stacking lane, which you can see to the northwest on this site plan, with payment kiosks, as well as 15 drying or vacuum stations and 8 standard parking stalls. 2 access points are provided off West Myring Lane, one to the north and one to the northwest. The main one is the one that's located to the northwest. That's where that stacking lane is shown, as well as primarily an exit located to the north onto West Myring Lane. The vacuum stations are positioned strategically on the site to the southeast, to reduce the noise impacts on the neighboring residential areas to the northwest. They are located nearer to commercial development with this layout. That's why there's the request for the variance, as the car wash building itself is going to be located within the 100-foot buffer from residential zoning. The applicant is deferring submittal of any landscaping or lighting plans at the moment. Moving on to the variance request. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the required 100-foot setback from residential properties to 75 feet. This is necessary to accommodate the stacking lane, which you saw just a moment ago, and the car wash building itself. The vacuums, which are the source of the noise, will be positioned to the southeast corner of the site, near to commercial development, as mentioned, to maximize the distance between the vacuums and the nearest residential development. There's 3 findings, as you know, that need to be met in order to grant a variance. The first one is that the variance does not grant a right or special privilege not otherwise allowed in the base district. So granting this variance does not provide a privilege that is not otherwise allowed in the community, commercial, or C2 district. This project complies with the dimensional standards of the district, and the applicant is not requesting relief from those standards just for the specific use standard for the car wash. The second finding is that the variance needs to relieve an undue hardship due to unique characteristics of the site. So staff did not find that granting of the variance would relieve an undue hardship due to unique characteristics of the site. There's two major reasons that the applicants are claiming that there's unique characteristics of the site that would create a hardship. The first is that there's these landscape islands located on the property that provide a natural buffer from the surrounding residential. However, those are located on many of the surrounding properties, which you can see here. Most of this development includes these landscape islands, and they are located within what the required buffer would be anyway. Additionally, it's that the zoning change happens in the middle of West Myring Lane, and they have to measure from where that zone changes versus from the nearest residential, which you can see is on the other side of Myring Lane. And we talk more about that a little bit later in the presentation. The applicant's request is driven by the desire to adjust the site layout and reduce the impact of the development on the neighbors. But with that being said, there's not a physical characteristic of the site that is creating that hardship. The final finding is that the variance is not detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. Staff finds that the granting of the variance will be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. Public comments received indicated concerns with the traffic that would be generated by this project, as well as the noise impacts and the proposed proximity to residential, especially with the granting of the variance. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce that required buffer, which is meant to reduce the impact on the neighbors. Additionally, comments were received from Ada County Highway District indicating that South 5 Mile is failing to meet acceptable levels of service in this area. The applicant has indicated the project would serve approximately 500 cars a day, which will have negative impacts on the surrounding neighbors due to traffic generation and noise pollution. This application was sent to relevant agencies to solicit their comments, and the following is what we received. Ada County Strategic Planning indicated that the Boise Comprehensive Plan designates this area as mixed use on the future land use map, which supports a variety of commercial and office uses as well as high-density residential, which we're seeing in this area at the moment. The car wash is compatible with the mixed-use designation and with the Community Activity Center zoning, which allows for a variety of commercial and service uses. Additionally, comments were received from Ada County Highway District indicating that impact fees may apply and that any proposed driveways would require an approach request and right-of-way permits. They also provided some additional comments I'll go over in a moment. The Ada County building official had no objections but indicated that they would need a building permit and submission of stamped plans. Boise Fire, Whitney Fire District had some requirements for fire hydrants and fire apparatus access roads that the applicant would need to comply with. Veolia Water indicated that they would serve this project, but that they are required to submit civil plans for water services, including private fire hydrants and updates to the existing services. Boise Project Board of Control has no facilities on the property, but indicated there is a valid water right. Our engineering team at Ada County is requiring a drainage application. And then to jump into the comments that were received from ACHD, a brief summary is basically that South 5 Mile in this area is not currently meeting an acceptable level of service, and that this project with the estimated 500 cars a day would generate 67 additional trips at the peak PM hour. This is what was received. I'm summarizing it basically with that statement, but I also want to clarify that the trip generation manual that ACHD uses does not speak to the trip generation rate for this type of car wash, so they can't say definitively one way or another. They also indicate that adding 67 vehicles at the PM peak hour is relatively low in the grand scheme of things. But additionally, they clarify that 5 Mile is not meeting that acceptable level of service at the moment and is considered failing, but Lake Hazel is providing an acceptable level of service, which is the nearest cross street. For the traffic impact to surrounding roadways, ACHD indicates they can't predict any traffic concerns or impact as it has not yet been constructed. So it would have to be constructed and then they could assess it. There were quite a few public comments that were provided on this application. Some citizens expressed concern over the potential noise pollution, increased water use, some impacts that would come to traffic problems, and that there may be chemical contamination from the project. One comment specifically requested that the variance itself not be granted due to the proximity to residential development. The applicant did provide a response to these concerns, indicating that they recycle water. I believe that number is up to 80% or so of their water is recycled, that they have a stacking lane that could handle traffic on Myring Lane, and that they use biodegradable soaps so that the chemical contamination would not be a concern. I would say noise pollution was the primary concern that we heard from neighbors, and the applicant did provide this in response. They indicated that the project would be at the 70 decibel level. You can see that here. The subjective evaluation of that is loud, and then the example of 70 decibels would be like a busy office. So they also indicated that they are located approximately 105 feet from the nearest residence, even though they are requesting a variance to the 100-foot buffer from residential zoning itself. So based on what we find here in staff's review of this project against Ada County Code, staff finds that it does not fully comply and therefore recommends denial of the application. My presentation will be added to the record as an exhibit, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, are there any questions from staff? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Chair. Do they have proposed hours of operation?
That's probably in there. I do believe that they did propose that. I think that's in their initial submittal. I'd have to look that up. They can speak to that when they come up too.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Davidson. I have the answer. I do not.
All right, well, the applicant can answer that question. All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Davidson?
Not at the moment.
Okay, Mr. Daly, go ahead.
Yes, Michaela, a question. Could you go back to where you were doing the measurements from? Because you said I'm a little bit confused about the 100-foot setback request and then where you were measuring to the 105 that you just mentioned. Can you go through that again in terms of where that one right there?
Yeah.
Where's the measurement from that you're measuring? Because I think I heard you say the point of measurement was confusing in terms of where it was in relation to the residents.
Right. Commissioner Daly, if I can clarify that a little bit. So the requirement is that they have a 100-foot setback from residential zoning. So the residential zoning on this one changes in the middle of Myring Lane, and they have to measure back from that 100 feet before they can have any portion of the car wash facility. But the applicant has clarified that they are over 105 feet from the nearest residence itself. So not from where the zoning changes, but from the nearest place where people are residing. They're over 105 feet from that.
So on this map, where is the zoning change that you're talking about there?
Right here, where it changes from the beige to the red,
Okay,
that's the zone change.
okay, so that's the point of the 100.
Correct.
It has to measure from there.
That's correct. And then these are our nearest residences.
So where is the noise there? Because noise was the primary complaint that wasn't answered, and we'll ask him that question as well, the applicant. But the primary that you indicated he hasn't addressed, primary was noise. So where's the noise? You said in the southeast corner was where the vacuum was going to be?
That's correct. On their site layout, they indicated that they are trying to move the vacuums, which they believe would be the loudest portion of this project or the car wash development, that they were moving them down into this southeast portion, which is closer to commercial. So a little bit northern in this parking lot. This is just parking up at the very top there. And then as it goes down, it becomes the vacuum stations. So they're trying to push the vacuums away from the nearest residential development. So that was the goal. They did respond to the noise, and I included that here. It's a little more detailed than what I've summarized here, but basically I put that red box around like this is the level of noise that they think that they're going to be creating. And again, they are 105 feet from the nearest residence, but not 100 feet from the zone change, which is what our code requires.
Right, which is the code requirement.
Correct.
My other question is now, go back to the aerial view of the whole area.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other component, commercial sites there, it's Walgreens is the one directly south, correct?
Yeah,
And the one directly to the west is Les Schwab, correct?
that's correct.
And how close is the Les Schwab to the residence?
I didn't measure that, but they have, I think this is like their community area and their open space area here. So from a residence themselves, they're further away. But from residential, they're closer. But they're not a car wash, and the requirement is for the car wash.
Correct. The noise level. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michaela, you said they're trying to move the vacuums. I mean, what do we do with that? Do we wait and see if they do it? I mean, are we just trying to grant it based on they're trying? I mean, or can that be required?
Commissioner Davidson, I should clarify. So they are proposing this layout that has the vacuums located in the southeast corner close to the commercial development. So this is what they are proposing. If you were not to grant the variance, it would require a redesign of this project, which may move those vacuums. I believe that the intent is what I'm trying to say when I say they're trying. The intent of moving those vacuums is to move the noise generation away from residential.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kella, normally on these sheets that we have, it gives us the results of our planning zone. Was this in front of our planning zoning commission?
This is coming directly to you, Mr. Chair, because a variance is attached to it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for staff before we start?
No, not at this point.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is the applicant here? You're the applicant?
We're the applicant.
Okay.
Michaela's gonna pull up our
I'm pulling it up.
Yes.
All right.
for us. Thank you.
All right, go ahead.
Evening. My name is Jaya Littlewing. I'm with KM Engineering at 5725 North Discovery Way in Boise. Thank you, Michaela, for your presentation. So as she said before you, we have a application for a conditional use permit and variance for Tommy's Express Car Wash in unincorporated Ada County. So the subject property is located at the intersection of 5 Mile and Lake Hazel, just north of Albertsons and Walgreens and just west of McDonald's. As seen on the zoning map to the left, the property is currently zoned C2, which is the community commercial district and aligns with the proposed project. This project also aligns with Blueprint Boise's plan for an activity center with a mix of commercial, retail, and residential for this area. This is one of a few commercial properties within this activity center with access to sewer. So the future land use map within Blueprint Boise designates this area as a community activity center with surrounding commercial and mixed use areas. So this is the proposed site plan that we just saw. As you can see, there's a 3-lane queuing lane, which directs into the car wash, which is proposed to be around 4,700 square feet. As cars exit, they'll be directed to the vacuums and drying stalls where free vacuums are available. So as part of this application, we are applying for a conditional use permit. This is required due to the zoning designation of C2, where car washes must receive conditional use approval. And then Connor has some information about the variance.
Hello, yes, Connor Lindstrom, with KM Engineering, 5725 North Discovery Way, Boise. We're here representing Tommy's Express Car Wash. Good to see you guys again. So yeah, if you'd like to go to the next slide, Michaela, that'd be great. So I'd just like to clarify the variance. I know it's convoluted and you guys had questions already on it. So the actual code section reads that we have to be 100 feet away from the car wash facility itself has to be 100 feet away from any residential zoning district. And so that's in the middle of Myring Lane, as was discussed. Now, if you go to the next slide, I'll probably have you go back and forth a few times, but this is an exhibit that shows a little more detail. So the actual car wash facility building it's going to be 50 feet away from the actual zoning district boundary line, which is in the middle of Myring Lane. Then we have a 75-foot separation, which is what we're requesting from the residential property lines, where those residences are, to the north, as well as to the west, which is the open space lot. But the residences themselves, the building structures, those are going to be 105 feet away or more as you move your way west. The closest would be just over 105 feet. So that's our main request here is we would like to exceed the 100-foot setback, but we'd like to comply with more of a 75-foot setback, which is, we think is the intent of the code, is from residential properties, not just from the zoning district line, which definitely limits the site and the way it's, this facility can be constructed. So you can go back a slide, Michaela. So here, this just kind of clarifies what we're stating again, be over 100 feet from residential structures. Okay, if you want to go forward a couple of slides, Michaela. So here's some just site characteristics that we find are unique to this property. So Myring Lane, as it comes in off of 5 Mile roadway, it curves around this site. And with that, there's only certain areas that we can have vehicular access. If you go back, Michaela, a couple of slides. Actually, I'm sorry, go forward. There you go, there's a site plan. So you can see here we have our access points. The access for this property for a vehicular washing facility to actually work needs to be more closer to 5 Mile as you come through, so we can use the full length of the property to be able to wrap around and get that radius for vehicles to come through and back through the facility. If we were to configure this a different way, it'd be a challenge to get that 110-foot building that we need to get in there for the full washing services to take place. So we're pretty limited on where we can put the building, given just the shape of the property. Go back a slide, Michaela. Some other things I mentioned were just the way that the zoning, or that setback is measured to the zoning district boundary line in the middle of Myring Lane. That is unique here to this property. And then as far as this area being an activity center in Blueprint Boise, what that means is the city wants to see a mix of uses, both residential uses, which are nearby, but commercial uses too. And you see there's already Walgreens there, Les Schwab, we have Albertsons across the way. So this would be adding to that community activity center. Now, another component that you guys are very aware of, you have here the property across 5 Mile that got approved. It is not on sewer or city services. This property is. It was previously entitled back with the Hazelwood development years ago, and then it was now it's in the Charlesworth subdivision. So it already has that sewer and water entitlement on it, which means that it is fit for commercial use. So probably one of the reasons why the city of Boise didn't have anything to say, because they're fine with this type of use on this property because it has service availability. So we recognize that that's unique to this property in this area. A lot of the other potential commercial lots across the way or maybe to the southwest or southeast would not allow for a use such as this. And the nearest car wash is over 4 miles away up on Overland Road. So we felt that was unique to this site. Michaela did a great job of just explaining the intent here of placing the actual car wash building that's enclosed closer to the residences is because of those vacuum stalls that we have. They are noisier than your enclosed washing facility would be, so we place those furthest away from those residences, closer to 5 Mile, which is more of a commercial thoroughfare through there. It's an arterial roadway. And then lastly, this is a part of a plan unit development. And the way that this was approved, there were some specific setback changes that were made with the request for the plan unit development. They changed the setback between commercial and residential to just 15 feet. It would have been 20 feet. And I think that just shows that the developers envisioned this to be more of a cohesive area where commercial and residential do come in contact with one another, and they're supposed to be closer together. So with that, we understand that there are just some unique characteristics to this site that we believe could be good reasons to grant a variance. We understand there's going to be a hardship here too if this is not granted. The site it won't work for Tommy's. It's going to have to be a 110-foot building one way or another. If it's not granted, they'd have to move that site significantly to the south, and there's not going to be access through there to get back up and through the car wash facility. So that would be a hardship we'd have to deal with. If you go to the next slide, Michaela. And one more. So this gets into the comments that we received from some of the neighbors, which we submitted a memo back to staff to hopefully address some of these comments. We did not see any folks at our neighborhood meetings, so they were a surprise to us. But here, here's some of the concerns we saw. Noise, traffic, lighting, and environmental concerns. So getting to noise, Tommy's is, they're willing to work with the county and the neighbors to try to mitigate impacts as much as possible. With that, they can put mufflers on those vacuums to, help reduce the noise impact. In addition, there's going to be a landscaping plan that'll be required. There is some landscaping that's already there with the landscaping islands, but additional landscaping can be added to the site and will be required by code. We can up that landscaping as you see fit. In addition to, there's an option for a sound wall. We could do that too to help mitigate impacts. Could be between maybe like 4 and 5 feet up against that northern property line to hopefully reduce some sound impacts to the neighbors. So we're willing to work with you there. I think Michaela did a good job of kind of mentioning where we're at a decibel level here. The average decibel level during a PM peak hour would be about 70 decibels, which correlates to like a busy office. And then if you go up from that, 80 decibels is shouting at 3 feet away. Now, if you figure those residences are 100 feet away, I mean, I don't know. I would just say that that's not very loud, but I think you guys are smart, can read that. And then traffic and safety, like what we mentioned, there's significant queuing, 15 vehicles can queue. Tommy's, between all their sites across the country, they average about 3 minute wait times. So they're very efficient, can get vehicles through. We don't foresee any vehicles backing up into Myring Lane. And yeah, a max of about 180 cars per hour, which, I mean, that would be a great day for Tommy's. I don't see that happening, at least off the bat, but they're hopeful to get there. As far as the lighting plan goes, the Ada County is dark skies at night county. They require any shielding or cut-off light, any outdoor lights to be cut off or shielded, and we'll have to submit a photometric plan. So that would be a condition of approval that would be required, that we'd have to meet Ada County code there. So no lights shining on the neighbors. And then with hours of operation too, Tommy's runs usually about 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you like to put a condition on that, you're more than welcome to. The zoning district allows for 7 to 10, I believe. So, we definitely meet that, but Tommy's would like to restrict that back even further, 8 to 8, 9 to 8, as you see fit. And then I think the last concern there was about environmental concerns. Tommy's, they understand that they use water, so they like to reuse as much as possible. They have a system there where they reuse 80% of the water, and any water that's not reused, it goes off it does not go into stormwater facilities. It goes strictly into the system, or sewer system there to catch all that runoff. It does not go into storm drains. Lastly, too, some other environmental things that Tommy's does is they have clear roofs to make sure they're reducing any urban heat island effects, capture some of that sunlight, and they have a very efficient controller system for their vehicles to get through the site. So those are some of the concerns neighbors had. We're trying to address those as much as possible. You go to the next slide. The last piece from the findings for a variance is the detriment to public health, safety, and welfare. One of the main pieces here was about what ACHD had to say. This is the same letter that Michaela shared. I read it a little bit differently than I think she was, but to me, I mean, yeah, maybe this car wash doesn't have exactly 67 vehicles. We don't know because there hasn't been a traffic impact study that's been done. It's not required by ACHD, but they're saying generally this type of car wash is 67 vehicles PM peak hour, and that's relatively low. we understand that, yes, 5 Mile is not up to par, but there is plans to widen that roadway. I mean, that's kind of out of Tommy's control. If Tommy's is approved, they will be adding an impact fee to help pay for improvements. So I would think that would be a service to this area. And lastly, it was mentioned here by Matt that they don't predict any concerns or impact based on this development. But once again, they don't really dive in too deep until it's constructed and look at it further. So all that to say, I know it's a little long-winded, but if you have any questions for myself or Jaya or Peter here, he's representing Tommy's as well, we can hopefully answer them for you. And we'd like to thank Michaela again for her time.
Okay, any questions from the staff? Go ahead.
Excuse me, I have several questions.
Go ahead.
So
No, go ahead.
I guess, what is the design, go back to the design of the flow through the, so does the flow through come off Myra and onto 5 Mile, off 5 Mile onto Myra, and then onto Lake Hazel? What's the actual flow through the design?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Daly. So you're talking vehicular flow. So yes, the goal would be that northwestern access point there off of Myring Lane. Vehicles would be able to enter into the property from there. And then they would drive south along that western boundary through the queuing lane. They'd go all the way down to the southern boundary, wrap up around, and back into the facility to go north. And then from there, they would have the ability to exit the car wash facility out into Myring Lane, where they can then get on 5 Mile from there, or they can come back around south through the vacuum stalls and vacuum out their vehicle. As you'd see with a lot of car washes, they have the washing facility plus the drying station. So that's the overall flow of the development. Does that answer your question?
Yes, my question relates to, because Ada County Highway District's presentation was 5 Mile is the limitation in terms of traffic. Lake Hazel is going to be a major artery, is now, and is going to increase. So I guess that's why, if the natural flow would be back onto Lake Hazel or onto 5 Mile, or could be either one.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, so the main flow here would definitely be onto 5 Mile, but Myring Lane does go west and allows for access down to Lake Hazel. And then you also notice too, on the east side of this property, there's a little private driveway there too that you can get access to Walgreens. So there are options here to get vehicles throughout the development. But yes, the main intent, I think, is for folks to come back out to 5 Mile to go north or south from there. Actually, I don't know, I'm sure when the new improvements go in, potentially you could only go south. I don't know if you'll even be able to turn left on 5 Mile because of the distance from the intersection. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, go ahead.
So back to the noise question. And I know noise dissipates based on distance, volume and distance. So at the 70 decibels down in that corner, you were talking about potential, and I don't know if it's currently in your plan, but you said they could do a wall or vegetation. Do you have any studies that shows what that does in terms of the dissipation of the 70 decibels by the time it gets 100 and however many feet to the residences?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. So the actual studies that have been done for noise studies have not taken place on this property at this time. Those have been other noise studies that have been done on other Tommy's car wash facilities throughout the country. So we pulled that data, and the average is 70 decibels. And that is measured at the property line from a Tommy's car wash facility. So that would be the closest distance from the facility itself to the property boundary. That's at 70 decibel levels. That's the average. And so that, like it says there, I mean, that would be just below shouting at 3 feet. So I don't know if you can do the math or not, but I guess as you go out, let's say you go 100 feet, I would say, I mean, that's going to significantly decrease the decibel level. Now, as far as the sound wall that's put in, I do not have any numbers off the top of my head of how that would decrease the decibel levels, but I would think they would do something, but I don't have any numbers for you as to how a sound wall or vegetation, landscaping would change those noise levels. But the idea is that the sound wall would actually be built so it would reverberate sound backwards. They're usually built in a way that they're kind of leaning back towards the facility to kind of keep that sound within the property as much as possible.
Go ahead.
But it's not currently in your, neither one of those are in your plan, but you're willing to put them in the,
Correct.
as a condition.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, that's kind of why we defer the landscaping plan too, is given the variance, we understand that we're asking for something outside of the code. And so with that, we didn't want to create a full landscaping plan if you guys had changes or something. So that's why I wanted to defer that to, hopefully get some conditions from you guys as to how we can move forward with that landscape plan. And obviously we'd have to meet code at the very minimum, but if you wanted to add something additional, we would be willing to do that to mitigate impacts to the neighbors.
I have some other questions, but if Ryan has some.
Okay, you have questions, Commissioner?
Well, maybe just following up on the egress, is there a reason why you couldn't exit directly onto 5 Mile instead of back onto Myron?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Davidson. So yeah, we actually do not abut 5 Mile directly right now. So you have that private driveway that runs along the eastern boundary of the site. That gives access to Walgreens, and they own that property that's along 5 Mile. So it's not really an option for us, nor would ACHD want us to access onto 5 Mile directly if that was an option. Given the distance to the intersection, they have spacing requirements. So it is required that we access onto Myring Lane. Hence, another reason that I spoke about in the variance, why that's, it definitely constricts us to using Myring Lane for access, and therefore it kind of depicts the way the site is laid out.
Well, what about accessing the private road? I mean, could you get permission to exit on that and then go up to Myring?
Yeah, well, I mean, Commissioner Davidson, yes, I guess that could be an option. It doesn't act necessarily like a private road as far as I'm aware. It's more of a driveway because they own all the way up to Myring Lane as far as I'm aware. So yeah, there could be maybe some sort of cross-access agreement, but once again, yeah, we'd have to speak with Walgreens on that to see if it's an option. But that could be an option for maybe for emergency vehicle access too. I'm not sure on that one.
Go ahead.
He can
Okay, okay, Commissioner, go ahead.
The water question, the water and soap question, which is part of the neighborhood concerns.
Yep.
You said 80% of the water is going to be recyclable, correct?
Correct, yep.
Now, how does that actually work in terms of, do you reprocess it? Do you just run it back through?
Yeah, so thank you, Commissioner Daly. It's called, if you want to go back to that slide again, where I had my notes on there. Keep going.
Back?
Yeah, forward, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There you go. It's called the Pure Clean Water System. So as for how, I'm not sure how it actually operates. I don't know, Peter, do you have any more thoughts on how to?
Three-stage pumping system. It's
You got to come to the mic if you want to testify.
You can come up. Yeah, you're good. He's with Tommy's. He's part of the applicant team. You'll just have to state your name and record.
Good evening. My name is Peter Nisbet. I reside at 1259 in Haley, also in Spokane, Washington, 9503-99206. The water system is a three-stage water system that recycles the water. And then water that's not recycled is run back through the sewer system, which we've talked about here. So this is a first-of-a-kind project, very different in terms of the actual structure of it. It's a conveyor belt wash where we believe in this community it serves a great purpose because it opens the opportunity for multiple vehicles from small delivery vans, Sprinter vans, to dually truck, horse trailer types of pickups that pull trailers, so it's a conveyor belt. Imagine if anybody's taken their kids skiing, it's like a magic carpet on a conveyor belt versus a roller system. So this is a first-of-a-kind system, and there's one in Twin Falls, Idaho, if anybody wants to take a look at one. This will be the first of a kind in the Boise metro Meridian area. And again, first of a kind in terms of recycled water, lighting, and soaps that are biodegradable. Thank you.
Thank you.
That answered my next question, was the biodegradable soaps in terms of the reprocessed water as well. So he just answered that.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
I don't know if Ryan has some.
You have more questions, Ryan? Commissioner Davidson?
So there's a little, looks like undeveloped plot next to the houses to the north. What is that?
Yeah, so Commissioner Davidson, I think you're referring to the open space. I don't know if you can, yeah, go to the aerial. There you go. So you're referring to the space that's just to the northwest of the lot, is that correct?
Next to the row of houses along 5 Mile there, closest to the car wash. It looks like a little square with just concrete, the very bottom of the row of houses. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Is that a driveway?
Do you know what that is,
Zoom in
Leon?
a little, maybe.
Yeah, my understanding is that the property definitely to the west, that grass area is common area, and that common area lot kind of goes around and it runs just south of those residential properties. And then you cross, I can't read what that lane is there that goes north, but you cross that, and there's another little chunk of common area there, probably where you have your landscape buffer and a home can be built. So it's maybe some sidewalk in there too. I don't recall off the top of my head, sorry.
So did you measure is this 75 feet to that first house, or is it to that little concrete spot?
Yep, so if you go there, yeah, so you can see the 75 feet is measured from the car wash facility building north to the actual residential property. And then as you come around to the west too, that shows you another where the 75 feet would hit that residential common lot. Now, the actual homes themselves, they're set back within their residential lots. So that's why you have that additional space there. Yeah, so does that answer your question?
So if you measured to the actual houses, do you know
Yep.
how?
That's where we're at the 100 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not, I'm sorry, we should have provided an actual exhibit for that, but.
So you're measuring to the houses, not to the property?
Correct, yeah. So from the building to the house, that's where we're over the 100 feet. But to the property line, that's where we're at the 75. And the code requirement is we have to be 100 feet from the actual zoning line, which is in Myring Lane. So that definitely restricts us significantly. I mean, you can see how there's 50 feet there, and you think another 50 feet, the site, it just wouldn't be feasible, unfortunately.
Okay.
Any more questions?
One more question.
Yeah.
I think you partially addressed this, but maybe amplify. Redesign, because that's, what is the practical availability of redesign? Because we've talked about various ingress, egress of the facility, the noise, some of the other. Have you explored, how many redesigns have you explored in terms of meeting that, so you wouldn't have to have the variance?
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Daly. So yeah, when we saw this code section, we did internally with our planning team through AutoCAD, we looked at various different options for the site. And it was not feasible, given the car wash facility building, it has to be 110 feet as its smallest for it to work properly, to get through the full washing process and drying. I mean, that's the bare minimum, is you have 110 feet for the building. So you take that and then you start moving around the site based on where that 100-foot setback would be. We're pushing it well over against some of the other commercial lots there. Now we have setback requirements too we have to meet. And then we also have to make sure we get enough radius there for vehicles to get through and turn around and access. And now we're running into issues then with emergency service vehicles too, being able to navigate the site. So given that we can't really access anywhere but off Myring Lane, that really restricts how we turn the buildings and also get parking in there too that's needed for ADA requirements, as well as, you know, having the washing, the drying stations. So yes, we explored various avenues, and we came down to the variance request, which is really our last resort here. So.
Yeah, you got more questions?
I don't think so right now.
You have any questions? Okay, well, Connor, I have a question or two for you.
Absolutely.
You're familiar with this process.
Yes, sir.
How do you fit the three requirements for a variance?
Yeah, so the first requirement is you got to show that you're, you know, not a special rider privilege. I think Michaela did a great job of explaining that. She shows that we're meeting that standard there. It's not a special rider privilege because this is a conditional use within that zone. It's a C2 zoning district. We're not asking for anything outside of what the zone allows for. And so therefore, it's not a special privilege or requirement. Next would be that it's an undue hardship due to the characteristics of the site. I went into length about the various unique characteristics of the site, the utility access that we have for sewer and water that would not be available to us on many of the other locations around this activity center. So that's unique. Being that it's an activity center, another unique characteristic, the city wants to see a mix of uses. We have our vehicular access constraints there off Myring Lane, unless we get the other property owners involved to the south and east, which is Walgreens. We're pretty restricted on where we can access the site. So those are some of the unique characteristics. And I think the last thing I mentioned was just how the code section reads about a setback being 100 feet from residentially zoned property or a residential zoning district. I felt and our team felt that the intent of the code was to provide a significant buffer between residences and the facility, not just residentially zoned property in the facility. So all those are unique characteristics, and we feel that if you granted the variance, it would relieve the undue hardship that if it's not granted, you know, we would not be able to use the site. So those are all unique characteristics. And then the last would be that it's not a detriment to public health, safety, and welfare. So given the comments we received from the neighbors, we understand there are some concerns. We think that our solutions to help mitigate those suffice and would allow for this to move forward and not be a detriment to public health, safety, and welfare. And then the comments we received from agencies were nothing that stood out to me that were out of the norm, rather than, you know, other than the ACHD comments about 5 Mile Road not being up to par. But like they said, they have plans to widen that roadway. We're providing an impact fee for them to help continue on their projects. So not much else we can do with ACHD there. So those are the three findings. That's how I feel we're meeting those. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and you indicated that some of the, as a result of the public comments that you received, now those were, you didn't have very many people show up to your public hearing, did you?
Correct, Commissioner Beck. Yeah, we had nobody actually show up to our neighborhood meeting. So when we saw those comments, we were a little taken aback, but folks are busy, so we get it. But yeah, I think there were 4 or 5 comments submitted into the public record, and we did our best to respond to those via a memo and with our...
That list of conditions, you'd be more than happy to adhere to that list of conditions if that was a part of the variance approval.
That is correct, Chairman Beck. Yep, we're willing to work with you guys and the neighbors to help mitigate impacts as much as possible, while also making the site still feasible for Tommy's Car Wash.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. The only other person that signed up has already been here, Peter Nisbet. Did you have anything additional you wanted to add?
I'll defer
defer at this time. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, well, deferring means that will end it because there's no one else to speak. And we're going to close the public hearing here pretty quick. So if you want to speak, now's the time. Okay.
Do I reintroduce myself again?
Sure, go ahead.
Peter Nisbet, 9503 Montgomery Avenue East, in Spokane Valley, Washington. I think when I live there, I live here a lot though too. I just want to thank everybody for their time. You know, this project came to us through the Hawkins Development Company, and they're in the forefront of 20 years ago building in this area and investing, and had a relationship with the Hawkins Company here locally, and they were very pleased that we took this project on. And I think it shows kind of the opportunity to retain the community. People are driving 6 miles to the north, 6 miles different directions for washing services. So I think this fits right into the commercial use of this trade area that the community's had for 20 plus years, when Walgreens and Hawkins took kind of a leap of faith with this trade area. So we just want to support that long term. We want to be involved with the schools, give back to the schools. Fire District 7 is nearby as well, so we're involved with first responders and be a part of the community. Thank you very much.
Well, hold on, there might be some questions for you. Go ahead. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I really thought, based on all this, we were going to have some people show up to testify, because I wanted to ask the neighbors some questions, but since they're not here, could we maybe have staff just, oh, there is somebody here?
Well, we'll wait and see, because we haven't, this is the presentation, and nobody signed up, but if somebody's here, they can speak anyway.
Okay, I thought he was doing the rebuttal to nobody being here.
That
but-
would be, but there's nobody.
So he's just testifying, this initial
nobody-
testimony.
He just testified. There's
Okay.
nobody here that signed up, so, but if there is somebody here to talk, then we'll listen to them.
And they'll still be able to do a rebuttal.
Yeah, sure. But I did have a question for you. I was intrigued by this belt system you're talking about, because I don't think I've ever seen that before. How do you keep cars from sliding a little ways on a belt?
Well, it's unique in that it's a conveyor belt. It's about 10 feet wide, so there's a roller on each end, basically. As you enter the wash, you drive up onto an AstroTurf conveyor belt. It's like AstroTurf.
Oh, so it's not a rubber belt, in other words, it's AstroTurf.
No, it's AstroTurf.
Yeah, well, that'll
Yeah.
prevent it from sliding a little bit.
Yeah, so it's a nice, you put it into neutral, of course, and then the roller takes you right on through. But what allows is different configurations of vehicles. And into the future, it's already set up for automated vehicles that are going to be self-driving. So as we look 10, 20 years into the future, self-driving automobiles, we have the configuration. This is one of a kind for the community.
So if you have one of those self-driving vehicles, you can just sit in your house and say, go get a car wash.
Or you could do that, and a wide dually truck too, and
All right.
leave the horses at home though.
All right, okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm intrigued by amplification of the water reprocessing facility as well as the soap, the cleansing things, how you put that package together.
Yeah,
Because you said it was unique, and
there's 3 pump stations under the surface in the pit, we call it. That's about a 10-foot pit. That's very standard in wash facilities. But we have multiple stage pumps down there that will recycle and pump the water. And then there's multiple screens that have to be checked daily and so forth as well. So there's a series of pumps. The infrastructure is significant, investment-wise, which is standard.
which is unique as well, as you described.
Very unique, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? No, thank you. Now, I indicated there was no one signed up, and there isn't anyone signed up, but if you want to speak on this project, you can go ahead. Just give us your name and address. You get 3 minutes.
I apologize. I have come here and always thought that there was an opportunity, if something wasn't said before, for me to come up and
Well,
say my piece.
This is your opportunity to say your piece. Just because you didn't sign up doesn't mean you get to say your piece. You get to
Okay.
say your piece. Go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Betty Berman Solo. I live at 1970 Cananera Way in Boise. I've been a resident of the Southwest Ada County Alliance for years, and I did attend the first neighborhood meeting for Tommy's Car Wash at the library, along with another board member. But I was unable to attend the second. I support the planning and zoning findings and feel strongly that the variance should not be granted for placing a car wash closer to any type of residential proposal. I have not traveled everywhere, but I have not seen any car washes that would be as close to the proposal before you tonight. This area does need services like restaurants and vet clinics, hardware stores, but the increased noise and physical detraction of a car wash at this location defeats the point of having this as a well-known designated major community center in the near future where people will want to meet and congregate. And I think just in hearing some of the reasons for the denial at planning and zoning speak to my concerns, having been part of that neighborhood for a long time, that it's a convoluted, as the applicant has stated, it's confusing how you're going to get in and out, and now with dualies and horse trailers and things of that nature, I can see that there's going to be obstacles to make this function safely. You know, we have a designated right now open space near the residential. And I was a renter at one time, and depending on what you have for options, it looks like it's going to be a real difficult movement to start with, and then knowing the backlog of fixing roads like 5 Mile. I mean, this may have more practicality 10 years from now. But I would love to see something that feels better in a residential community. So I would urge you. Can I finish my sentence?
Yeah, wrap up.
I'd urge you to consider the hardships that were brought up by planning and zoning, that we did talk about the noise, and I feel that it would just be a much better neighbor for us to wait on this commercial proposal before you. It looks difficult at very best. Thank you.
Is there any questions of the Ms. Bermanzolo?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Did the neighborhood association take any position or vote on this?
The comments that I heard from board members, even 3 days ago, we had our last Zoom meeting, were that this has had problems with planning and zoning, and that with the denial, then our concerns about the noise and the traffic issues would be probably dealt with when the commissioners look at it. I have heard no one that has spoken in favor of this proposal that are on the board.
Question to staff, did this go before P and Z and?
No, didn't.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, no, I believe when Mrs. Bermanzolo is referring to P and Z, she's talking about our staff.
Staff.
Okay.
Denial, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, one of the issues is I mean, they're asking for a variance for a couple extra feet. If they had met the requirement, we wouldn't really have much ability to deny if they had met the 100 feet. So that there still can be a car wash next to residential houses if it's that certain amount of feet. And everybody wants, the best things in their neighborhood, but obviously if you don't own the property, then you don't really get to pick. So, I mean, what would you say if they were not asking for a variance? I mean, it would be hard to oppose it under those circumstances.
I believe the Highway District's comments and knowing the difficulty we've had in existing problems on 5 Mile, I'd hate to see backup of traffic as a consequence, when it was brought up as a reason to deny it. That's my personal feelings.
And you heard some discussion about the noise issue. They're moving the drying stations further away to deal with the noise. They offered to maybe do some additional landscaping or a sound wall. Did you or anybody else you talked to have a position on that?
Yes, the board members have discussed it between ourselves, and what we view for that area, as I mentioned, were restaurants, places that people could congregate, hear each other, and not have something that is next to an open area right now that may attract children to that area. So I think we were all thinking that it's probably not the best fit. It isn't a good fit, according to anyone that was in the meetings that we've had in the past and talked about, has this come back again? Has this come forward? No one has ever been in support of the car wash proposal.
Obviously, it's tough, though, that we want all the magical shops and diners and bars and restaurants, but if nobody shows up to build them and somebody else comes with another proposal, it's obviously, if they meet the certain conditions, it's hard to keep them out.
I think you have your reasons from what was expressed to the community in terms of the way staff viewed it and the parties, the highway district certainly being critical with the situation we have at that location.
Okay,
Thank you.
And any other questions? Do you have any questions? Go ahead.
Just as an amplification of what Commissioner Davidson said, it's going to be a number of years before the Highway District is going to improve 5 Mile. Lake Hazel is going to be improved before that, according to their 5-year plan and long-term plan. So that's why I was asking the question in terms of the egress and ingress and egress to the facility. So, and again, back to what Commissioner Davidson said, if the distance from the residences versus the distance to the zoning code is the really what's in play here. The distance to the residences is sufficient. It's just the zoning code is the distance that's required. So the distance for the noise and the facility qualifies in terms of the residence to the business. It's just the zoning code question that's not. So I guess that's my dilemma in terms of discussing it, because we do need businesses down there that address the needs of businesses that address the needs of that community down there. It's a matter of what they are, and back to what Commissioner Davidson said, the community itself, unless you wanted to own it and build a restaurant yourself, we rely on the business community to come forward with the proposals that they have for businesses in the area. So thank you for your comments, though.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I have a question for you. I know we're familiar with your neighborhood association. We've filled this room with your association on several occasions. And one of the issues that it kept bringing up is, well, we'd really like to see this area developed so we don't have to drive 5 or 6, 7 miles for services. We just heard tonight that there's not a car wash within 5 or 6 miles of this area. So it seems to fit with what your neighborhood association wants. And if this was so objectionable, why isn't there more people here objecting? And you can't represent that you represent all the people, but because they all know that this was going on. And I know your neighborhood association is not shy about expressing their opposition. Let me put it that way.
Yes. Why aren't there more people? Is that the question, Commissioner?
Well, the question is your neighborhood association has always expressed, we want to have that developed. We don't want residential there in that general area because plenty of residential there they claim. And that area has been set aside for commercial. And we bought our homes here for commercial purposes. And we want commercial to get put in that area so that we don't have to drive 5 or 6 miles. And that's what this is doing, isn't it?
The fact that it's a commercial doesn't necessarily mean that it's the kind of commercial that fits that close to residential. I'm a physical therapist for home health.
Sure.
And so I drive around and I have been looking to find any kind of, and there's several on Overland Road, which is 4 miles. There's several car washes along Overland Road now. So it's not a terrible drive. At the same time, in terms of commercial proposals that have come forward, there is interest in that area. And that's, for that reason, I think we're hopeful that it's going to be a better neighbor to residential than a car wash.
Okay, I don't have any more for questions unless you do. Any questions? All right, well, thank you. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that wishes to testify for or against? We don't hear anybody. Okay. You can take a few minutes to rebut if you'd like.
Might want to both come up because I might have questions for both of you.
Well, that's up, just wait a minute. I think if we do, they can come up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Beck. Yeah, appreciate the comments and the conversation. A few clarifications. So yes, I think it was staff did a good job of clarifying, but when she was talking about P&Z, I think she was referring to staff and their recommendations. So yeah, this did not go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The other thing about there being 2 neighborhood meetings, we were only required to hold one, and we only held one. It was at the Christine Donnell School of Arts, I believe, just south of the intersection. So nobody attended that meeting. She might be referring to the Ada County Alliance, the neighborhood association meeting, I think is maybe the meeting she was referring to, which we weren't a part of.
Okay.
As far as vehicular access and how she touched on that, our access, it is the main access is proposed to be the furthest access away from 5 Mile. So we're not creating more, issues at the intersection with vehicular and, pedestrian crossing. So we're trying to make the main access into the site its own access further to the west. Then we have a separate exit or egress out into Myring Lane where folks can then get on 5 Mile from there. They don't have to make an extra turn. As far as the actual use goes and the community activity center, I know you guys are aware of this area, but I'll just remind you that the folks that wanted that did not want the residential development back behind the liquor store, they stated, as you mentioned, that they want more commercial uses. We are providing a commercial use. Now, picking and choosing uses, we like to leave it up to the code, and we feel we are meeting the comp plan, what the comp plan wants, and this is a conditional use in the zone for this area. Now, there's plenty of commercial pads sites that are to the west of the liquor store and Reed's Dairy to the west there. Those are available. That's been entitled. There's plenty of restaurants and such that can be built there. I haven't seen much development going on, and this site here has also sat vacant for years. It was platted back in 2020, and I mean, it's been open for folks to build something else. So here comes Tommy's, and they see it as a good site for them, and they'd like to move forward. So that's really all I have to add.
All right.
If you have any other questions, though, feel free.
All right, are there any other questions of Connor from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Just related to concerns about traffic, you know, if the location really takes off and you've got some really busy days, is it possible that traffic could get backed up on 5 Mile because there'd be a line of cars on, what's the other street called? The street where you enter, where they're backed up and then
Myring Lane.
Myring Lane, so cars might get backed up on 5 Mile trying to get in.
Yeah, so the queuing lane, Commissioner Davidson, we actually have 3 lanes there, allows for a total of 15 vehicles to just queue. Now, once you get beyond the kiosk and you actually pay, you then have a line of vehicles that can go through the site. So you take 15, you add another maybe 5 to 10 that can actually get through the facility. So at any given time, might have 20 to 25 vehicles that can occupy on site at any given time without backing up into the roadway. Now, Tommy's, their average, their PM peak hour average based on all of their sites across the country was 80 per hour, 80 vehicles per hour. So, I mean, you just do the math there, and I don't foresee that this site is not going to be able to hold that many vehicles within an hour, let alone a given time, and that's during the PM peak hours. So, once again, this isn't the village. It's not downtown Boise. There's not as much congestion here as you might have in other parts of the valley, but we do hope it's a profitable site for Tommy's, and there is some business there, but we don't foresee there being any more vehicles queuing than 15 at a time out onto Myring. And so the way that access is positioned, it is further from 5 Mile. It's the main access point. It's getting away from ACHD's arterial roadways. So that hopefully that answers your question. One more thing to add, as far as ACHD goes, we have a number of arterials throughout the county that are below their service standards and their service level. And I think if we just deny or approve projects based on that alone, of what they sit today, we're not going to see much development taking place. And so therefore, approving something like this does allow for impact fees to be added to the bucket where they can, help these improvements actually get on their feet and done. So hopefully that helps them.
Okay, any other questions from the commission?
Just looking at it, it looks like you're utilizing a lot of the lot. Obviously, there's not a lot of extra space, is there?
No.
I mean, I don't know if the neighbors would want this, but could you put like food trucks and picnic tables on the side if that would make any money? I don't know if that would placate the neighborhood or not, but.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Davidson, if Richard and Leon let it slide, without getting approvals maybe, but I doubt it. We'd probably have to go through another process to get approved for, food service on the site. But yeah, we're utilizing as much of the site as possible. We push that turning radius where you come back into the facility as far south as possible. We adjusted the radius to make it as tight, but not, unsafe, so folks can still turn and not get stuck in there, and emergency services too can access the property from both Myring Lane and on the east side on the private drive. They have multiple areas where they can service from their trucks, but also to get into the site and drive through. So, yeah, we're.
Okay, any other questions?
I don't think so.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we were to approve this with conditions, like for the location of the vacuums, the sound wall, the vegetation, time of operation, all of those kinds of constraints, you would be willing to work with staff to address some of those issues?
Absolutely, Commissioner Daly. Yep, those are all options we feel would be helpful to mitigate impacts if you would like to approve this tonight. So yep, vegetation, landscaping, we like to meet code requirements, but if you have any additional suggestions, we'd be open to those. And then you have the sound wall. We have options for 4 to 5 foot sound wall along the northern facade of the building, closer to the residents. And then we also, as the site plan lays out now, we feel that it pushes the vacuums further to the southeast as possible. So I don't know if we'd have any additional conditions about the site layout itself and changing that. I think it would fit, I think it would create the best solution to mitigate noise impacts, keeping those vacuums further to the southeast. So,
Thank you.
Okay.
and hours of operation too. Yeah, we're willing to work with you there. It allows 7 to 10 in the code, but we'd be willing to scale it back to 8 to 8, or if you have another suggestion too, we'd be willing to listen to you. So appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Any other, if there are no questions, thank you. Thank you. Okay, do you have any documents you need to add for the code, add for the hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm adding my presentation as I mentioned, and Mrs. Berman Solo also provided me written comments that she handed to me, so I'll be entering those into the record as well.
All right. Okay. I will then close the public hearing on application 20240-2286 CU MSP-V. And the question is, shall we approve the application or deny it? Or do we approve it with conditions? What's the pleasure of the board? Anyone want to kick it off?
Okay, I'll kick it off.
Go ahead.
Now, I obviously understand the concerns of the neighbors and the residents. I think a large part of our discussion is geared towards how, if we do approve this, could it be in a way that is going to minimize the impacts to the neighborhood? And so, based on the testimony I've heard, I'm inclined to support this, but with a couple extra conditions, just in an attempt to try to minimize the impact on the neighborhood. And I think one of those would be a sound wall with maybe some extra landscaping. I don't know if that would be trees behind the wall, but that would be just on the northern portion there. Something to try to minimize the sound going into those closest houses. I also think that it'd probably be beneficial to the neighborhood if people were able to exit onto the if we call it the driveway, it's not Walmart, what is it? Walgreens. If they could exit onto the Walgreens driveway, I think that might minimize some of the traffic noise to those closest houses there. I think that'd be in the interest of Walgreens as well, because people would be a lot more likely to drive there. You go get your car washed and then you go get some snacks. So I would recommend that we put a condition that they seek permission, which could be denied, from Walgreens to access that road. So I'm looking at the sound wall with landscaping and egress onto the Walgreens driveway as conditions that could mitigate impacts to the neighborhood. The hours, that's obviously open for discussion. I think probably in the summertime, they could be open later. So with the conditional use of appeal, I think that's reviewed at 5 years.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, in this case, it would not have a review period.
Okay. How would, if we approve certain hours and either the neighbors or the applicants wanted that modified after a year or see how it goes, how would that be addressed?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, the applicant or the property owner could at will modify their hours of operation as they desire within the basic limits. But as far as changing the conditions of approval, they'd have to come back to you to make anything that's more restrictive.
The neighbors could file something.
I think that would be difficult, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, to change the approval after the fact.
Unless we
I
put
think you're
a-
probably committing to a minimum standard here if you do pursue approval.
Unless we put a review period in there.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, I suppose you could add a review period, come back within a certain time to hear. It does place a burden on staff, makes it a little bit more difficult for us to conduct those reviews and how that works, but it is a possibility.
Okay, any other discussion? Any other,
Those are my opening thoughts.
Mr. Daly?
Well, I guess part of, I agree with Commissioner Davidson in terms of putting some parameters around it that they've already agreed that they were willing to do.
They have, but but if they've said they'll do it, but what we need to do, I think, is make it a condition of approval.
Right,
if we're to-
correct.
If we're to approve it, because they had a whole list there, and I don't have all the list in front of me, but
Right, we would need to put them in there, but they've already agreed to, to do some things. And so if we put it in there, and the community at large has, in fact, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, said they want commercial in that area. This is and we don't, because we're not developers, we don't choose the development. We just respond to what.
Well, they have. In fact, they've said they want commercial, and they said that to mitigate the traffic, because they don't want to drive 5 or 6 miles to get the commercial use that they want. I don't think people are going to be driving from Overland to here to get a car wash, because there are other car washes around. In fact, when I first saw this, I'm going, man, another car wash in Ada County, because you see them everywhere. But there is there's not a lot out there. There's not any out in that area. And the neighbors have told us, they filled this room here telling us, we want more commercial out here.
So this gives us an option, if we can put some parameters around it that address the concerns of the community at large, then, which we've discussed to do. And so I'm inclined to support it with that in mind. We put conditions on it.
Well, I think if we do approve this, Connor knows how to speak about variances and about how the conditions are variances, and he's done a pretty good job of presenting those. And I think it does probably meet that. However, the list of conditions for the variance is pretty long, and I think I'd like to see exactly how we would make. I agree with some of the variances that Commissioner Davidson put in, but I'd like to add those other ones as well. And we don't have all that list here. So I guess the question would be, should we table this and get the list of variances and then add them to it?
Or
The conditions, yeah, and add them to it? I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, what's the easiest for staff to do? You know the general discussion we've had, that we want some conditions on it, and that a lot of the conditions have been discussed. So could you put that together and get back to us if we table it with the conditions, and then we can actually.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Daly, we could certainly have Michaela prepare a revision with proposed conditions based on what we've heard. It sounds like there's an exhibit that listed some additional conditions that we could find and add those as well. It would be helpful, though, for Michaela if you can identify what the conditions are that you would prefer to see.
All the ones that were discussed, plus the ones that Commissioner Davidson discussed, the sound barrier and so forth, and the lighting and the
Timing
the
and
time.
Vegetation,
Okay, yeah, we've heard
noise.
we've heard a sound wall, hours of operation 8 to 8, additional vegetation, seeking permission to access the Walgreens drive aisle. That's what I've heard so far. I don't know if there were additional conditions that you thought may help mitigate impacts.
Well, we can put that, the seeking the private drive, but if we put that as a condition of approval that they seek it, that doesn't mean that if Walgreens doesn't give it to them, that holds them up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
'Cause
that's
I think
correct.
they'd like to seek it anyway, wouldn't you? Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, any other conditions that we would want to add to it?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, I think some of the issues like with lighting and whatnot, that's already incorporated, isn't it?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, yeah, they would, if deferred some of these landscaping lighting plans, they would submit those as a condition of approval to review against existing code requirements. and any additional conditions that you place, like additional landscaping adjacent to the required sound wall, those type of things can be reviewed as a condition of approval. And it sounded like maybe Michaela identified another condition?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, staff, what I think you're referring to is that all of the agencies provided comments that are conditions. So I've written up tentative conditions for if it was approved. So you would see those when I revise this to reflect your approval. And then whatever additional conditions you want to add as a result from this hearing, I would also add. They will just have their landscaping and lighting plans as conditions of approval since they've deferred those.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So just to clarify, so those that you listed are already would be in the approval?
That's correct, Commissioner Daly.
Yeah,
They would be in the approval that I go and revise. They're not included here because my recommendation was denial, but when I revise it to approval, it will include all of those agency comments as conditions.
Right. And those are the ones that Chairman was talking about.
Well, and ones that the applicant provided as well.
It sounded like the applicant was giving you suggestions for what you could require as conditions, and we've talked about those, and I can include those.
Right.
And it's just as long as you're specific as you can be for what you want to see. Specifically the sound wall, you want to see that on the northern property line.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, sounds like we're ready for a motion.
All right, I'll try it out here. I move that we table application number 202402286-CU-MSP-V for,
Get a date.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we would recommend the February 4th open business meeting.
to February 4th, 2025, for a revised finding of facts and conclusions of law, implementing additional conditions of approval that the board will review prior to the meeting.
Well, it'll be part of the conditions of approval for the approval. And they will be included in the revised findings of fact and conclusions of law, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davis, in your motion, you could specify what conditions you would like to see added. So some of those specifics.
So the specifics to be added to the conditions of approval would be that we sign off on a sound wall and landscape plan, landscaping with the intent of reducing sound. That we require that they seek approval from Walgreens to access the driveway. And is there a third thing?
Time of operation.
Oh, and the proposed hours of operation.
Well, and the additional conditions that were submitted by the other parties, correct?
That will go in there
Yeah, that'll go
anyway.
in there. And the additional conditions that were provided by the applicant.
And the additional conditions that were provided by the applicant.
That's sufficient.
So is that clear to
Is
the
that
staff?
clear enough for you?
Clear to the staff what we're asking?
Yes, board, very clear.
Okay, okay. All right, is there a second to the motion?
I second the motion.
Okay. As long as the staff's clear on the variance with these conditions. Okay. The motion is to approve it with conditions, and the conditions are clear, and the staff, and table it till the 4th of February, right?
4th of February, right?
Yeah, table this application till the 4th of February for an additional revising of the findings of fact and conclusions of law and additional conditions of approval. Correct?
Correct.
All right, that's the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Okay. Well, looks like we have a few more up here today. Okay. All right. I will open the public hearing on application 2024-02380 ACV Kendall Rasmussen and ask our staff, Michelle, You're getting used to being up here.
Yeah,
If you could give us a report and set us off. Go ahead.
absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Michaela Owens, Associate Planner for Development Services, presenting Project 2024-02380 ACV, which is a request for a variance and accessory use approval to exceed the maximum square footage for a secondary dwelling. The application is submitted by Holly and Kendall Rasmussen. The project is located at 3868 East Zaldia Lane. The subject property is located east of Eagle Road and north of Amity Road, and it's a 5.15 acre property within the Rural Urban Transition or RUT district. To provide some additional context, on the left here is the existing site layout at 3868 East Zaldia Lane with the existing dwelling located to the southwest on this site and the previously approved in 2023 secondary dwelling and accessory structure located to the northwest of the site. On the right side of this slide, you can see the existing ground floor plan that has been previously approved. The applicants were granted previous approval underneath an accessory use permit in 2023 to construct this detached accessory structure, which totals approximately 4,600 square feet and includes approximately 900 square feet of living space. Moving on to what the request is for the variance, the applicants have requested approval to exceed the maximum allowable size for the secondary dwelling. The proposal that we're hearing tonight is to convert 615 square feet of previously approved storage space into living space. So if you look here, this on the last slide was storage space right here. And they would like to convert that into living space, which includes a bedroom and a bathroom and a living room. So that's going to increase the total living area of the secondary dwelling to 1,508 square feet, which is well over the allowance by code of 1,200 square feet for secondary dwellings. So you've heard this before and you're going to hear it again. There's 3 findings that must be made in order to grant a variance. The first is that it does not grant a right or special privilege not otherwise allowed in the base district. Granting this variance would not provide a right or special privilege not already allowed in the RUT district. The property complies with dimensional standards, and so does the structure. And they're not requesting a change in use or an exception to those dimensional standards. They just want to increase the internal living space above the 1,200 allowed square feet. The second finding is that the variance has to relieve an undue hardship due to unique characteristics of the site. The variance request does not demonstrate an undue hardship due to unique characteristics of the site. The applicants have already constructed and been approved for a secondary dwelling with permitted living space of almost 900 square feet. They now seek to convert an additional 615 square feet of storage space into living space, which would bring the total to 1,508 square feet. Ada County Code, as previously mentioned, would allow 1,200, which would be a 307 square foot increase in living space, which would only require accessory use approval without the need for a variance. Thus, staff believes that this request does not meet the criteria for an undue hardship, as the applicants have other options available to expand their living space without exceeding the code allowed 1,200 square feet. Finally, the variance cannot be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. Staff finds that granting the variance would not negatively impact health, safety, or welfare. It's an already built structure, and this request just pertains to conversion of space within an already constructed building. No agency comments indicate that this request would be harmful to public health or safety. On this slide, you can see what the elevations look like at the moment. So this application was transmitted to relevant agencies, and the following are comments received. Ada County Strategic Planning indicated that the property is located within the Meridian area of city impact and that the Meridian Comprehensive Plan is applicable. It's designated as medium-density residential, which supports single-family homes. The proposed project is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan, particularly this goal, which encourages diverse housing options suitable for various income levels, household sizes, and lifestyle preferences. Additionally, comments were received from Central District Health indicating that they have no objections to the proposal. Ada County Highway District had standard conditions of approval, and they are not requiring an impact fee, and our building official indicated that a building permit would be required. Based on staff's review, the proposed variance does not meet all of the criteria outlined in Ada County Code, and as such, staff recommends denial of the variance request as set forth in the proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law. My presentation will be added to the record as an exhibit, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for our staff? Go ahead.
Correct me if I misunderstood you, but you said other options are available to increase the living space. What did you mean by that?
Commissioner Daley, they're able to increase their living space. They were allowed less than 900 under our old code. They can increase to 1,200. That's the new allowance that we set in our code for maximum size of secondary dwellings. So they can do that without being granted a variance, but they're requesting a variance to go up to 1,508 for the square feet.
Okay, so the increase, it's the amount of increase.
That's correct.
That's what you're talking, okay, thank you.
So the amount of increase that they're asking for is 300 square feet.
They're asking for an increase of 615 square feet, Commissioner.
I guess I just didn't understand your dialogue with Commissioner Daley. You said 1,200 to 1,500.
Yeah, if I can clarify, they can increase 300, I'm just going to round. They can add 300 now under our current code and without a variance. That puts them at 1,200, which is our limit. They want 1,500. So that's around 600 additional square feet that they want to add. It's just the amount that they're adding that makes them require a variance.
So then what I said was right,
You said 300, so I just wanted to clarify.
over and above what the code allows.
That's correct.
But it's actually, they're asking for 600.
That's correct.
But it's only 300 over what the code allows.
That's right.
I get it now. Okay, any other questions from the staff? Okay. All right. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Oh.
Good evening. My name's Kendall Rasmussen. I live at 3868 East Zaldea Lane in Meridian. It's in an unincorporated area of Ada County. This is my wife, Holly.
Do I need to state my name and address too? Holly Rasmussen, 3868 East Zaldea Lane, Meridian, Idaho.
Okay, thank you.
We bought the property in 2013 and planned on building on it. We built the home, the main house in 2017, and the property is just over 5 acres. It was basically rural out there. We had a lot of farmland around us, which obviously got developed, and now there's a lot of houses around us. But that's okay. Last year in 2024, we built an additional dwelling unit. Well, we started it in 2023, but we call that our carriage house. It has approximately 900 square feet of living space. It's got a garage, small shop, and of course, storage space. We would like to convert the storage space into living space. The plan is to add an additional small bedroom and bath. The conversion would not increase the size of the structure or have an effect on the footprint of the building in any way. Again, it would only incorporate existing storage space within the structure into the living area. The variance is not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. The existing dwelling has met all code requirements based upon the previous building permit for a secondary dwelling. My wife and I recently retired and would like to live in the carriage house. Our oldest daughter, she has a family, and she would like to live in the main house with her husband, and they have 3 children and 1 on the way. So we also have another adult daughter who is on the autism spectrum. She has special needs. This request for conversion of the storage space to add the additional bed and bath would allow her to live with us. She has had brief periods of independence. However, it's time to address her long-term needs by allowing her to live with us for this foreseeable future. Our request meets the variance criteria in that it doesn't grant special privileges. We believe it relieves an undue hardship, won't negatively impact health or safety, and it would be a great benefit to our family. As required, we hosted a neighborhood meeting and no one came, but we've had a lot of personal conversations with our neighbors who express their support in our project and wish us success in our request. I do have one letter here that our next door neighbor, Larry and Ann Freeman, sent to us, and it says, "Hello, Kendall and Holly. We received your letter concerning the neighborhood meeting scheduled for 7 p.m. on November 1st, 2024. Unfortunately, we will not be able to attend the meeting because of prior commitments. However, we would like to let you know that we have no objection to increasing the living space within the existing footprint of the secondary dwelling. Overall, we think the new secondary dwelling has turned out very well and fits well into the overall appearance of both your 5-acre property and the surrounding homes in Shelburne." We've also had direct conversations with our neighbors that are adjacent to us, and we actually have several that border our property. And I've got their names, but they have all given us their full support and say that the dwelling is very nice in the neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration. We would like to ask for an approval for this application.
Okay, are there any questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I guess I think you've answered this, but just want to make sure I understood it properly. So when you originally built it with that part as storage, you didn't have any contemplation. Now you have family situation that's changed, that now you want to change the storage into living? Or
Yes.
the question really was, why didn't you build it that way in the first place? But I think you answered that.
Well, we always kind of planned on, we know that the area will someday be developed into housing. That's Meridian's main plan. And we wanted to build a structure that was big enough that it would fit into the neighborhood, you know. And I don't think we will develop it anytime soon, but when it is developed, we wanted the house to be big enough to fit into the neighborhood because they're not, small homes around us. And so during the building process, the code was increased to 1,200 square feet, but we tried to amend it, but they said, well, you'll need to jump through the process of doing a reapplication. And so we said, okay, well, we'll just finish this off. And then once we got to that point, we thought, well, this additional 300 square feet would be a great benefit to finish out the main area.
It would allow us to then, in between when they increased to 1,200 and now our need to address our daughter's long-term living arrangement, that's when it came into play that we would need to convert more storage in order to allow her to live with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Hey, Michaela, could you put the aerial view up? So when you said you talked to your next door neighbor, which one are you referring to?
The one that is directly to the south, that one right there, that's the letter that I read. Ann and Larry, I mean, they were really one of the first houses that built. That was the first phase, and they built they have like 5 feet. They can build within 5 feet of the property, and that was all. I mean, there were cows grazing in that whole area when we built, but Ann and Larry have been really great to, we talk to each other quite often, and then I've talked to the person directly to the east of them that border us, that's Kevin, and he's on board with us, and Mateo, he's like 2 up from that, and they all think that it's, great that we didn't, build a small little house that may detract from the value of their house, I guess.
And what about the large parcel on the other side? Did you talk to them?
Yes.
Lonnie and Bonnie.
Lonnie and Bonnie, he wants to do the same thing, build a secondary dwelling on his property too. And also, they're really good friends of ours, Lonnie and Bonnie Stiles. And then the one that's directly west of him, Tim and Molly, that's them. I believe he's in the process of getting a secondary dwelling built. He's in the process of getting that approved, and he's quite supportive of our project too.
Looks like you're surrounded on most sides by pretty high density, so
Yeah,
this wouldn't be really adding too many extra to, I mean, it's already pretty packed around you.
It is, and yeah, they've stubbed roads into us and stuff, and
Kingsbridge behind us that shows the north of here are larger homes. When they gave permission for Shelburne to build, they are more homes per acreage, and that's where you see the higher density to the east and south of us.
but they're not starter homes either.
They're nice homes, very nice homes.
They're really nice big homes.
So how long are you and your family planning on living in the two houses?
Till death.
I'm never moving again.
You're not gonna leave us and go to California and something like that?
Oh,
No, we moved here from Salt Lake 25 years ago, and this is our home. Our daughter's married. They have a large business locally, and our son's married in here. His wife actually relocated from Portland area to here, and we just have our special needs daughter that needs to be with us.
All right, thank you.
You have any questions? No. All right. I noticed, because you leave that area, that it seems like there's a lot of pretty big homes surrounding yours there. How far is the city boundaries from you?
Everybody's
Everybody's incorporated around us.
There's 4 of us on Zaldea that have 5 acres apiece, and we're the only county residents there.
The rest of them are incorporated into the city of Meridian?
Yes, everybody's incorporated.
And so it looks to me like if you all got together with your group, you could get incorporated, and if you want to, and you have a little sell the property off. You kind of sounded like you were interested in maybe doing that.
Well, no, we
Well, at
bought,
some point maybe, but not right away.
Of course, but because you want because you got 5 acres there, right?
yeah, and it's just down Eagle Road, just off Eagle Road and Victory, so it's really fairly close. There's really not a lot of open space like that
Right.
left, that close to town anyway.
All right. Well, I don't have any more questions unless anybody in the commission does. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this application? Nobody signed up. Anybody online?
We have no other people online.
Okay, and there's nobody else wishing to speak on this application. And you've added your presentation to the record.
That's correct.
Is there any other documents we need to add to the record before we close the hearing?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing on application 2024-02380 ACV, Kendall Rasmussen. The hearing being closed, it is now before us to make some sort of a decision. Anybody want to kick it off for a discussion, for approval or for denial? Actually, it would be approval of the staff's recommendation, which is denial. Okay.
Mr. Chairman? I guess based on the discussion and what the understanding, it seems to me that there this should be approved, not denied, based on its very limited increase, doesn't change the footprint of the building on the lot. Neighbors haven't opposed it. The character of the community is probably going to be changed to increase the density at some point in time, not decrease it. So I think this is not inappropriate to approve the application and not deny the application.
Commissioner Davidson, do you have any comments?
Well, I think it's in the county's interest to, facilitate housing for people who intend to live here a long time with their families. And I think that it would be a hardship if we didn't approve this so that the family members with special needs wouldn't be able to live there, because it sounds like they need to be with the family to watch over them. So I think that would be a hardship if they didn't have an adequate housing to facilitate that.
Well, I tend to agree, and I would add to that, however, that with a 5-acre parcel, our code might be a little out of whack. If we have that kind of limitation, because there's 5 acres there, and I don't think that's really too dramatic to put an extra 300 feet in an alternate dwelling on 5 acres. So maybe we ought to take a look at that. But
Especially when it doesn't change the footprint.
it doesn't change the footprint, and it just seems to me like this is one of those areas where we could make a difference. I accept the motion, and it seems like if we're going to do that, we'll need to table it for a certain date.
What's the date?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you could consider the January 27th open business meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve application 20240238-AC-V, Kendall Rasmussen, and table it to the January 27th business meeting to provide the staff time to revise findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Any further discussion? I think we do need to have a revised finding of fact and conclusions of law. And all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Okay, I will now open the public hearing on application number 2023-01060 ZCDAS VACPR, Feather Creek Ridge subdivision. We have our resident expert on computers that's going to make a presentation to us. Go ahead, Leon. Keep him going.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you. The item before you is a zone change, development agreement, preliminary plat, vacation, and private road for Feather Creek subdivision. The applicant is the Bodes family. Gary McAllister represented them at a previous hearing, and I believe they have Mr. Todd Lakey representing them tonight as well. So pictured here is the subject property highlighted in red. That is the piece of property they wish to subdivide into Feather Creek Ridge. It's a part of a 37.49 acre site that is attached to the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision. The Feather Creek Ridge subdivision would be 20.06 acres. It's currently zoned rural residential. Surrounding uses include some smaller lot residential to the south, which is a part of the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision. To the northeast and west are large agricultural tracts. Access would be from South Rocking Horse Place. I believe that's right, or Dancing Horse Drive. Our mapping's a little tough here, but I think it changed its name as it turns a 90-degree angle there. This is the former open space lot of Bridle Ridge subdivision, which was a non-farm development platted in 2009. Should be noted, and you'll see the comments both in our staff report as well as some comments provided by the applicant. The non-farm development ordinance no longer exists in Ada County Code. It was repealed. So we kind of have a lot of properties like this, and you've seen them over the years, where these large open space lots seek to redevelop. They were created again under an ordinance that no longer exists today, and so there's kind of some complications there that have to be maneuvered through vacation processes and other things like that. Pictured here is the subdivision itself. It is again, 4-lot subdivision. Each of the lots would comply with the dimensional standards of the Rural Urban Transition District, be served by a private road that comes off of, here it is labeled as Dancing Horse Place, so forgive me for the rocking horse comment earlier. So this private road would serve all of the proposed 4 lots. The remaining roughly 15, I guess closer to 18 acres that the private road crosses over is to be retained in the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision, because that's where the drain field for Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision exists today, and both the Health District and DEQ want that to stay in the original subdivision. That's just been their practice to require that lately. You've seen again that on a few projects lately. So as I mentioned, all lots would comply with the requested Rural Urban Transition District standards. Again, all 5-acre lots. In the RR currently, it's a 10-acre lot minimum that's required. And as I noted here, that's the piece to remain with Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision. And again, it's to protect that drain field for the existing subdivision primarily. Pictured here is the future land use map for the area. The current site is designated agricultural, which supports the requested RUT zoning, as it would allow for small-scale agricultural uses to remain on the 5-acre lots. The adjacent land to the south is designated low-density residential, and again, that's the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision. Pictured here is zoning in the area, largely rural residential everywhere. You recently saw an application for the London Bridge subdivision to the south, and that's the spot of RUT zoning that was included with that project. In terms of the vacation, as I mentioned before, it's kind of the necessary step to maneuver through these old non-farm developments that really don't have a place in our ordinance anymore. Specifically, they look to vacate this plat note on the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision, and I'll just read it into the record. Lot 10, Block 2, shown hereon, is a deed-restricted lot and may only be used for open space as defined in the non-farm development and dedicated open space sections of the Ada County zoning ordinance. The deed-restricted lot must also be used in a manner specific in the conditions of approval issued by Ada County's Department of Development Services. This lot must be used in this manner until the subject property has received development approval and approval for a zoning ordinance amendment to 1, either a commercial or industrial district, or 2, a residential or rural district that allows a density of less than or equal to 5 acres per dwelling. In addition, urban services must be available to the proposed development. It's particularly condition 1 is satisfied with the request to the RUT zoning. This property is in the area of city impact. Properties inside the area of city impact for CUNA and other cities. RUT zoning is typically the most intense zoning that we offer those types of properties, so they are eligible for that. Also based on comments made about the comprehensive plan earlier. It's the underlying portion, urban services are available to the proposed development, that requires really the vacation of the plat note, because to date there are no urban services available. The individual lots are proposing to use individual well and septic, which is quite common for 5-acre lots in the RUT district. In terms of comments from agencies, our regional and planning team noted that it is in compliance with CUNA's comprehensive plan as we've adopted it. The Boise Project Board of Control noted the presence of a lateral in the area, that they've provided some specific guidance concerning an easement and how it's to be protected moving forward. Boise CUNA Irrigation District had an initial comment stating an objection to the project and a request to see some additional plans for the irrigation water for the lots. They also had some questions about irrigation wastewater, and a follow-up comment recently received. They did note that they had reviewed the irrigation plan, and they did provide some guidance on design, easements, and how future use by the residents of the subdivision should take place. Sorry. The Health District noted that the project may be approved so long as the remaining portion of Lot 10, Block 2 is maintained as open space and the existing septic drain field is not disturbed. Again, that's that portion that they're requesting to stay in the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision. The Ada County engineer requested some updates to the preliminary plat. Those are from our county surveyor, and also provided guidance on well depth for the lots, which would need to be a minimum of 250 feet deep in the area. They also asked or recommended testing the quality of the water and also ensuring the availability of water with drawdown tests as those wells are being drilled and proposed. The Highway District, and sorry, I've got a little weird box there in front of my notes, is requesting some dedication of right-of-way to total 31 feet from the site's east property line. That's for a future roadway that ACHD wishes to build at some point. They also request the paving of existing driveways. There's been some clarification on which driveways exactly they want paved. There's quite a few if you look at the site, and they've been able to work with ACHD to narrow those down to just a few driveways, and they can give you some more detail on that. They also want a private road at the terminus of Rocking Horse Place, or the Dancing Horse one. I don't know which it is. Someone's going to have to, I apologize for our map, just bounces back and forth there. And the installation of some street name and stop signs for that private road. In terms of comments from the public, we did receive 9 in opposition to the project. And a quick summary of those, and you'll hear more from the public tonight. But first off, just incompatibility of existing agricultural uses and residents on smaller lots, including creating issues with drainage and existing irrigation facilities in the area, spraying for weeds, pests, as well as odors, dust, and flies. There's concern about taking the subject property out of a productive agricultural state and how that may negatively impact some of the adjacent uses in the area, particularly the agricultural ones, as well as just kind of interrupting potential access and groundwater systems through the redevelopment of that site. Concerns about additional traffic, the lack of city services present to the site, and then a higher level belief that it violates the original approval or intent for the Bridle Creek subdivision as a non-farm development. There were 2 comments provided in support, one of which is the applicant, just kind of more of a clarification letter than I guess a comment of support. But in their letter, pardon me, they state that the denial was due to a split vote by P&Z. So as you're familiar, if a hearing body has a tie vote, it's an automatic denial. In this case, we had 2 P&Z commissioners say yes and 2 P&Z commissioners say no. As a result, we had a denial. And so from that, we drafted the findings that were in the packet for you in terms of what P&Z ultimately decided there, which was a recommendation of denial. Another point made in that letter is the redevelopment of this open space associated with a former non-farm development is consistent with similar approvals that Ada County has granted. And again, I brought up some of those in the past, but we have seen the redevelopment of a lot of these old non-farm development open spaces. And so they believe this is kind of in keeping with some of those approvals that have recently been made. They find it to be supported by our current code, the comprehensive plan, as well as the fact that it is in CUNA's area of city impact. And so 5-acre lots in the area of city impact and RUT zoning is pretty consistent with a lot of what we've seen in the area. They note that the proposed project of 4 lots will have minimal impact on the surrounding area as it relates to traffic, groundwater, and other concerns. They believe it provides a nice transition between the 1-acre lots of Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision and some of the larger agricultural tracts. They also note there's similar development in close proximity to the proposed project, the London Bridge subdivision being one example, but even predating that, there's a lot of 2 to 5 acre stuff within a half mile of the subject property. Not a lot, but there is some. And then finally, a neighbor from the Bridle Creek Ridge subdivision just noted that they welcome additional housing, but they would really request that we add a condition that purchasers of homes in the development sign a form that requires new homeowners to acknowledge kind of the area they're moving into, active agricultural uses. We also, just to note, we have a standard plat note for the Right to Farm Act for any subdivision, which also attempts to achieve the same thing, but this would be taking it one step further, which would be an acknowledgement form that would be recorded against the property saying, we know what's in the area and we choose to buy here and build here and live here. So in terms of findings for the project, staff has found it to be in compliance with CUNA's comprehensive plan. We also find it to be in compliance with the zoning ordinance amendment section of our code, the section pertaining to development agreements, preliminary plats, private roads, and the vacation. So in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the project. As I noted earlier, our Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial at their November 7th, 2024 public hearing, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Leon, do you want to summarize the planning and zoning hearing and what some of the arguments and debate were there.
Yeah, Chairman Commissioner, for those opposing it, there was concern that, I think they kind of heard what the neighbors were saying, that Bridle Creek Ridge was approved as a certain thing, and this was supposed to remain open space until we had services in the area, and it could be redeveloped accordingly. There was concern that this might introduce lots that aren't compatible with uses in the immediate area, both north, east, and west. Those were the major kind of arguments against it or concerns against it. Those in favor thought it was a nice transition, as noted by the applicant's representative. There are 5-acre lots in the area. They thought it still could preserve kind of the agricultural character of the area with 5-acre lots. And neither side really had a lot of concern about impacts to services. I think it was really the vacation portion of that plat note that really kind of separated the commissioners most in terms of who said yes and who said no, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, when people bring up lack of city services, what really are they referring to? Which services? What's the concern?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's usually the presence of sewer and a municipal type of water system. Oftentimes that's Veolia, but sometimes it's Meridian Water or some other group. So really, it's kind of municipal level water and sewer. There is always the concern of, is the fire department going to be able to get here? Do we have a good enough police presence in the form of the sheriff? Roadways, in terms of capacity of roadways and traffic. But I'd say sewer and water are really, it kind of starts and stops there in terms of what we can allow zoning-wise and intensity of development-wise.
I guess I'm trying to understand if people are concerned about sewer water, but they don't live there, how does it affect them? I mean, if people are willing to put in septic and drill a well, what do other people have concerns for?
Well, Chairman Commissioner, I'll probably let those people speak to that exactly. But, a new well, a new septic is different than a sewer and water system. It can introduce additional nitrates into the ground. It can, there's the concern that one person's well could make another person's well run dry. I think those are generally the things that, along those lines that we hear.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, Leon, I have a couple of questions. I've read the P and Z's findings of fact and conclusions, and I'm having a hard time understanding what their objections were.
Yeah, I think it's, I apologize. I think the big things, again, were the vacation of the plat note and just kind of what Bridle Creek was approved for in the past. The lack of urban public facilities was one of the things that we heard a lot about. So I think those were the center points of their concern, but.
And this was a split vote?
It was, yeah, 2-2. We had several commissioners absent that night, so, yeah, we normally have 7 P and Z commissioners. That night we had 4 total, so.
So if the motion had been to deny it, that would have been a tie vote, which didn't pass. I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, well, as I understand it, and we've got our lawyer here to help us with that too, maybe Richard.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Any tie vote is a denial.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But then conversely, a vote to approve would have been not passed either. So in other words, a split vote, if it's 2-2, nothing passed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, do we have the applicant here? Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome to the
Commissioners.
meeting.
Thank you. It's great to see you. For the record, before we start, Todd Lakey, I'm a land use attorney with Lakey Villegas Law, address 141 East Carlton Avenue, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. Commissioners, and I do represent Paul and Stephanie Bodas. They're the property owners and still live in the Bridle Ridge subdivision. Commissioners, I'll kind of hit the key points. I'm glad you have your resident computer expert running my slides. I'll hit the high points as I go through this and then get into some more detail as we go along. Commissioners, this is a very small 4-lot project. minimal impact. And as was described by Mr. Letson, this is part of an old non-farm subdivision that was approved. The approval was almost 20 years ago, back when you had that non-farm ordinance. But the facts, the circumstances, and frankly the law have changed since then. The old non-farm ordinance that's referenced in that plat note has been repealed. It no longer exists. And now we are in the impact area for the city of Kuna. The property was not in the impact area previously. So those are both very significant changes to the circumstances and facts regarding this project. The project coming forward has to be analyzed under the current facts and the current comprehensive plan and the current zoning ordinance. That's what Mr. Letson did in his analysis and recommendation of approval. And we agree with his prepared findings of fact and conclusions of law that you have. As was described, the P&Z Commission was a split vote, a 2-2. As you just discussed, any split it's neither, if it was a motion for to approve or to deny, neither one would pass, and it's an automatic denial. I think as Mr. Letson stated, those commissioners that focused on the old plat note and the fact that this was approved under the non-farm ordinance, that's an inappropriate and incorrect analysis in this case. That ordinance no longer exists. It doesn't govern and control the property. It's specifically referenced in that plat note. You analyze the project and the application now under your current zoning ordinance and your current comprehensive plan, not the old non-farm ordinance which tied it to that. So I think at least one of those no votes relied on that, I think, improperly. The appropriate analysis is, what do we have currently? What are we looking at? CUNA's area of impact designates the property for ag, and that designation includes 5-acre parcels, so small scale ag. That's also recognized as ag in this location, and those 5-acre lots are allowed. That helps maintain the rural character of the area. We're talking about an impact area where development is supposed to happen, but you can also have small scale ag and large scale ag in that impact area. Ultimately, again, commissioners, this is a small, very small project, 4 5-acre lots. These are very large parcels with a lot of open space for small scale ag, animals, outbuildings, those kind of ag-related activities. And they will be nice, larger custom homes, just like we have in the existing Bridle Ridge subdivision. Next slide, if you would, Leon. So the project itself, this is the approach as Leon described it. You've got a lot of these old non-farm subdivisions, and this is the way you approach them and seek for redevelopment of that portion as long as it complies with the comp plan and the zoning ordinance. In this case, we do. So it's appropriate for redevelopment. The key change here being the fact is that we're located in that CUNA impact area where this type of small scale ag with a residential component can coexist with the large scale. So this is that 20-acre parcel you can see there with the blue star. Just south of that is that open area that has the drain field for your existing subdivision, wastewater treatment facility. This 20 acres is not located immediately adjacent to our neighboring dairy, which is there to the east. That dairy abuts the 1-acre lots from the Bridle Ridge subdivision and the riding arena. That's an amenity, indoor riding arena amenity to that subdivision. There is a demand for these larger lots. Not everyone wants to live in the city. I think that's demonstrated by the character of the area that I'll show you in just a minute. But 5-acre lots provide that opportunity, I think, even more so than the Bridle Ridge 1-acre lots that were intended to have horses and equestrian uses. With a 5-acre parcel, you can certainly have animals, equestrian uses, horses that fits with that intent and those amenities that exist currently. Next slide. So there's Mr. Letson went through the site plan, but the 4-acre lots are there on the north as part of that open space. CUNA's comprehensive plan now that's the map down there below that. The yellow areas are their low density residential. So that's 2 dwelling units per acre. And that plan designation exists on Bridle Ridge. So the Bridle Ridge subdivision now is supported by the CUNA comprehensive plan. And our ag designation for 5-acre lots to the north of that helps provide that transition. The current comprehensive plan does not support the higher density that would be a natural occurrence if we kept that plat note in place and we had to wait until city services were there. Then you're not talking about 5-acre parcels, and you're probably not talking about 2 dwelling units per acre. You're talking about R6, something much more dense. Next slide. So commissioners, as you know, the Local Land Use Planning Act says impact areas are where growth is supposed to occur, and that's your jurisdiction. That's the goal of this location. Preserving ag for the long term is no longer the goal. Now it's about finding that right balance. City limits are only 1.3 miles away, so basically about 1.25 miles. And the 5-acre lots provide that good transition on this western end of the impact area. Next slide. So a little closer look at CUNA's comp plan. It talks about ensuring personal ag production. That's what happens on these 5-acre lots. Small scale farming. It also supports larger scale farming, which does exist out there, but it supports local produce and local ag products. That's the reason these 5-acre lots are appropriate here. Again, the yellow designation, we have some low density residential to the east and to the south that you can see, and then immediately to the south, and then those other portions that are closer to the city. So we fit, again, with the ag and the lower density that's already there. Next slide. So the commissioners, there's your distance. There's the city limits you can see in the lighter tan. It's about 1.3 miles to there. I think it's RS6 just to the north of that. That's about 1.5 miles from the subject property. So city limits are not far from this location. Next slide. Here's a little more about the character of the area. So the parcel that we're looking at for the 4 5-acre lots is there on the star. And then just to the south of that is the Bridal Ridge subdivision. Those are 1-acre lots. There's about 10 of those. Then you have to the south and east, those 1-acre parcels. That's the old Forey Heights subdivision, 19 1-acre lots there. Then to the southwest, you see those 2-acre lots. That's the Wald-Vogel acres. There's 8 of those. Then you have 10-acre lots just to the a little more southwest. And to the south of that is the Open Sky Estates. That's 6 1 to 2-acre lots, 2 2 to 5-acre lots, and 3 7 to 8+ acre lots. And then just to the south, you see that kind of curved portion. That's the London Bridge subdivision that I was here before this body just a few weeks ago. Those are 8 5-acre parcels. So we're very consistent with that residential acreage development that exists in the area. Next slide. So commissioners, these are pictures of the homes that exist in London Bridge to give you an idea of what's there. We're talking about equivalent property, equivalent custom homes being developed on these 5-acre parcels. This helps maintain not only the rural character of the area, but the quality. And you also see the indoor riding arena. That's part of that amenity for the Bridal Bridge project. Next slide. Just briefly, commissioners, the rural-urban transition is the zoning we're requesting from RR. So basically, the ability to go from 10-acre to 5-acre parcels, still keeping that small-scale ag. That provides transition, as I said, in 2 ways, from the 1-acre parcels in Bridal Ridge to the ag to the north of us, but also on the western edge of the impact area to the agricultural uses that exist outside the area of impact. Next slide. Just to hit some of the technical aspects, commissioners, as far as traffic issues, ACHD, as you know, has the jurisdiction, the expertise, will comply with their recommendations. There's only 4 lots, so it has minimal impact. They don't have really any additional requirements other than some dedication and some driveways, and we're happy to comply with that. Green Lane itself is a very low volume rural road. Traffic in the area is naturally slowed. You can see that diagram down low. The access will be, you can see that first access between those two blue arrows. That's the existing road into Bridle Ridge, and then we access it off that cul-de-sac. So there's not a separate access onto Green Lane from this four-lot project. But those curves are 20-mile-an-hour curves that naturally slow the traffic. They have to slow down. So this is a good location for residential access. Commissioners, as far as the wastewater, my clients conducted an NP study. It's in your packet. Central District Health approved that. So the well and septic work on this site and 5-acre lots are plenty large enough to accommodate those things. It's a strong, stable aquifer. It's a deep aquifer, down to potentially 250 feet for those wells, similar to what we discussed in the London Bridge project. But we're not in any area of concern for the Idaho Department of Water Resources. There's no negative agency responses, so we meet those conditions. Next slide. Just in conclusion, Commissioners, again, we're talking about 4 5-acre lots, a very small, very low-impact project. We're happy to include the right to farm protections in the plat notes. The one letter of support also asked for right to farm acknowledgement that would be signed by the 4 purchasers of the property. If that's your preference as a condition, we're happy to do that as well. I'd emphasize again, the old non-farm ordinance restriction and language does not govern this application. It's subject to the new situation, the new comprehensive plan, and the new zoning ordinance. As Mr. Letson said in his analysis, it meets the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. So with 2 Plan and Zoning Commissioners in favor and Mr. Letson in favor, I think that's 3-2 in my book, and should be approved. Commissioners, I'd ask for your approval and acceptance of Mr. Letson's prepared findings of fact and conclusions of law, and I'd answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Do you have any questions, Commissioner Daly?
Nope.
No questions?
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
All right, is Randy Wall on WebEx to speak?
He is not.
So, because we have a,
That was a previous application.
that's what?
That was a previous application, Commissioner.
That was the previous, Randy Wall. He testified on the other.
Okay, well, there's, okay, all right. That's right. And then the other one here is here, that signed in here. Okay. Okay, we have to signed up here, Everett Corona.
My timer on. Thank you. My name is Everett Corona. I live at 4133 Dancing Horse. I am right in the middle of this direct proposed development, and I am also the HOA president of the association. The 2 developments will not be part of the same association. We are a 10-home HOA. Obviously, the applicants are 1, so 9 that could either agree or not agree. I have not heard a single negative from any of the people who live there. There is another resident here that is also in favor of this. Traffic will be driving right down in front of my house in order to get to this development, so I'm obviously very concerned of what this impact is, and I'd much rather have 4 homes than 30 to 40 to 50, depending on what happens later down the road. As far as the previous meeting and some of the notes, I know that traffic safety was a concern. You will probably hear from the owner of the dairy. I think a few more cars on the roadway will probably help this because the dairy isn't the cleanest. There's a lot of debris out on the roadway, mud, cow feces. So winter and springs are pretty brutal where we live, and so maybe this will force him to be a little bit more roadworthy when you drive your vehicle on the road. There is few other dairies that I have to drive to and from when I travel, and this is hands down the worst. So maybe that'll help. As far as the waste services, that was also a complaint. We live right next to a dairy. I mean, that's the nitrates are the nitrates. It is what it is. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'd much rather look at 4 rooftops instead of, like I said, 30, 40 if there was a production builder that went in. There is a fire station that is going in less than 2 miles away. And the city of Cuna has also approved a 200 or 250 home development in that same area. So growth is coming. So, I mean, it's Ada County. We can't fight it forever. So I think 5-acre parcels are a lot better than, you know, quarter-acre lots. So, and I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the board? Go ahead.
On the map, where's your house, did you say, right?
Let me share that again. Sorry about that.
Oh, wow. So there's a cul-de-sac to the bottom right. I am the second house to the right of that one.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
any other questions? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Boats.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Botus, and I live at 2375 Rocking Horse Place in Cuna. And thank you for letting me come up and speak.
Sure.
I just prepared it so that I wouldn't miss anything. My husband and I, we've actually lived in the country our whole lives, except for college and medical school. We moved to Cuna 19 years ago, and we're blessed with the opportunity of doing the Bridal Ridge subdivision, which contains beautiful homes. We originally were hopeful that it would draw people with horses to the area because we have an indoor and outdoor riding arena, and we love horses. And originally, the project was developed with the idea that all the people out there would do horses, but that wasn't the reality. There were only a couple that came that had horses, but they didn't mind that we owned animals. And the people in the subdivision still ride in our arena. It's part of the amenities. And we have an outdoor arena. We had to take down the existing because now we weren't sure where the new road was going to impact that arena. So currently, the outdoor arena still has the footing, and people are still riding out there and training their horses. We have a trainer that actually is on site. So people living in the subdivision that want to, you have to pay for the trainer to help you, but we do have a trainer. Guess I better read from this. So we realize that it has been an unpopular idea with some of the neighbors. In closing, I want to thank you for letting me come up and speak on our behalf. And we really feel like 5-acre lots is a beautiful transition. We don't want high density ourselves. We've been farm folks our whole lives. So thank you very much for letting us come.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Is there any questions from the board? Chair. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you know if horse riding is covered under the Right to Farm Act?
I have no idea. It's a great question.
Are you concerned at all with the new people coming in opposing the horse riding at all, or is that not a concern?
I actually already have people asking if those lots are available yet, and they all have horses. There's not one that's asked me that doesn't. So I think I'm going to have my little horse community, hopefully, God willing.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is it Paul Botus?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Paul Bodis. I also live at 2375 Rocking Horse Place. I just wanted to go over a couple of quick things for you. One, there was a discussion about the irrigation. I've met with the Board of CUNA Irrigation Department, and I had actually already planned out most of this. I did not realize that there was any concern. And was speaking with them, I guess, in previous incidences, some people didn't even provide the water even though they had to pay for the water rights. So that has all been addressed to their satisfaction, including easement for other local residents to get back to their weir gates so that they could get their water and so forth. So we've taken care of all that. Interwest Supply, which is an agricultural supply company, has been out there already to design basically the way that the irrigation water is going to be supplied to the different fields. And it's already previously been irrigated through gated piping so that basically the run and so forth has already been leveled out for that. A couple of other just quick components. I know that one of my neighbors, who's basically a really nice guy, he owns the dairy, Ted, and his wife Leslie, and they're concerned. And I think that everybody is in agreement that we want these things to stay. I have nothing against a dairy next to me. In fact, my grandfather was a dairyman. He couldn't quite convince me to buy into that lifestyle, but God bless those gentlemen, that family that wants to do that, because I obviously live right next to them. I've seen the work and how difficult and unpleasant that type of job is. And I'm all for them being there and continuing on with their farming along with the rest of the farms. We've also been blessed with the gentleman to the east of us who basically has bought the property from our spot all the way around to Black Cat and then clear to Kings Road, except for a small 10-acre parcel. It's all agricultural. He's just put in a brand new pivot. And I've spoke with the gentleman, Steve Whitaker, and he is planning on maintaining that as a farming area so that, again, this is going to have minimal impact on the people. It's going to have minimal impact on anybody else. Almost all of the other areas around on Green Lane are already either 10-acre or smaller lots besides the dairy that's across the street and Mr. Whitaker. So the impact to my neighbors is going to be minimal because there's really going to be no change left to be done on the rest of the area from Green Lane. That's approximately 1 mile in length from McDermott to Black Cat Road. I think that covers it. So anyway.
All right. Are there any questions?
Thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Scott Ode.
My name's Scott Odie. I live at 4411 Green Lane, Cuna, Idaho. Everybody keeps addressing how everything's been taken care of and everything, but it's to my understanding that Bridle Ridge doesn't even have a proper drain field for the people. But yet they want to develop more and they don't have their original development working proper. Maybe it should be put on hold until the system they have works proper. And maybe that's the reason for the waiting until city services is there. So that's all I got to say.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm not familiar with it, but I'll direct it to staff if staff has any comment on the drain field issues.
Chairman, Commissioner, I don't have any, but I bet the applicant could address that in the rebuttal.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy Odie.
Kathy Odie, I live at 4411 West Green Lane. I'm opposed to this. There's several reasons. When they did Bridle Ridge, would you doing the pictures first?
I can, yeah. If you want to tell me.
That'd be
what's
fine.
open up for you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be fine. They were supposed to move some power poles on Green Lane and widen it. The power poles are on the north side of the road. The canal is on the south side of the road. And I have, well, the power poles have a concrete barrier in front of them. I'm wondering if any of those actually got moved. And then, do you have the papers?
Would you like me to open the picture for you, or?
Sure.
Is there, okay, I'll just open it. All right.
Okay, can you do the papers?
Oh, and paper.
Documents?
Sure. ACHD, is that?
Here it's, they're asking, the applicant is asking to appeal a portion of the site due to mostly the cost associated with the relocation of the power poles and the pavement widening on Green Lane abutting the south side. The south side, like I said, is where the canal is. And the staff was not supportive of this applicant request. And then it goes on to say that the next person, if these improvements are not constructed with the application, then it's likely that the next person to develop in the area would be required to widen this section of Green Lane due to its current conditions. And then there's several places, conditions of approval, and I think they've talked about this. It says redevelopment when urban services are available, and that's in several conditions of approval. And that's what I believe part of the reason for the P&Z denial was part of that. They agreed to it, and it was a condition of approval, and now it's, we don't want to do it.
Anything else?
That's it.
What is that?
Would you like me to go through your pictures at all, or?
No,
Okay.
I can,
Okay, any questions from the commission?
Well, ask staff.
Go ahead.
So the issue of removing the power poles, I mean, that's ACHD's purview to require that?
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioners, the ACHD letter there was from 2009, which is back when Bridal Ridge was under review and approval and ultimately platted. And so at the time, that was an ACHD staff report. What exists there today is ultimately what ACHD signed off on, because they have to sign every final plat that is ultimately recorded here at, within Ada County. So there are new conditions attached. And again, I might defer to the applicant to dive into some of the more specifics of ACHD, but they are requesting some additional right-of-way for future extension of, I believe, Green Lane in the area. And so they have placed additional conditions on the project. So the applicant will be required to comply with any of those in order to gain ACHD's signature on the final plat.
Any other questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you. Sharon White?
Good evening. My name is Sharon White, and I live at 2460 South Rocking Horse Place in Bridal Ridge subdivision. I am also the treasurer for the HOA. Before I begin, can I address one of the comments regarding our septic system, our community
You
septic
can
system?
address any comments that you'd like to.
So here's the challenge. I'm hearing impaired, so you'll have to speak a little bit slower, please. I have hearing aids.
You can address any subject you want to, as long as you keep it civil.
Okay. Well, as the board member, our system is inspected yearly by Blackwater LLC. We are in compliance with all guidelines, testing. Every resident tests their system every year, and all of that is on file also. So there's nothing wrong with our system. So I don't know why that was brought up, but I just wanted to bring that up. That wasn't part of what I was going to say, but this individual brought that up, and I thought I would
Well, go
address
ahead.
that. Okay. So this is my statement. I have lived in the Bridal Ridge subdivision since 2017. My husband and I built our home there, and we currently have 2 horses and other pets on our property, and we use the horse facilities. We are in support of the proposed Feather Creek subdivision, and some background as to why. It's no longer a question of if residential growth will come to our area, but when. With the new fire station on Cuna Road near Black Cat, it's a matter of time before our corner of Southwest Ada County is annexed into the city, opening up the opportunity for high-density housing and bringing an end to our country way of living. There are two camps concerning the approval or denial of the rezoning for this project, but I see us all united in one concept, and that is we don't want high-density housing to make its way to our neck of the woods. High-density housing is starting to make its way to Southwest Cuna, south of the railroad tracks, on Cuna Road between 10 Mile and Black Cat, Swamp Falls Road, and east of Indian Creek and Black Cat. With so much open space southwest of the city limits, we can expect to see more annexation resulting in high-density developments similar to these. I've read the planning and zoning recommendation to deny and the letters from those who oppose the subdivision, in which it is claimed the subdivision may jeopardize the existing agricultural uses in the area due to incompatibility of residences and the issues of living in the country near these farm operations. You know, weed, pest spraying, odors, dust, flies. But those of us who live in the country would much rather put up with occasional odors, which depends on which way the wind blows, crop dusters, flies, dust, weed and pest control, and helping round up loose neighbor cows instead of city life. The Bode subdivision plan is an opportunity for Ada County residents to have a say in the type of growth for our area and begin a buffer between us and city growth.
Could you wrap it up?
I'm almost done. Okay. Am I done?
No, just go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Finish up, you can do it.
5-acre parcels are large parcels of land, and it's highly unlikely someone who is living in the concrete jungle will move out to live next to dairy farms, feedlots, and slaughterhouses. I'd also like to address the argument that this land would be taken out of agriculture. This land in the proposed development has been non-working farmland for decades. Likely, whomever buys and builds on these lots will return the land to working agriculture on a smaller scale, whether it be pasture for horses, goats, cows, gardens, etc. Currently, it is in weeds and goat heads and is dove hunted during the season. Please keep in perspective, it's 4 homes we're talking about. Increased traffic and road usage would be minimal now compared to if 200 homes are built in our backyard. In summary, I ask that the committee approve the development so we can preserve our country way of life and keep high-density housing from taking over this area of Ada County. Thank you.
Any questions for the app? For any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ken Crockway?
That might be Chris?
Chris?
Oh, man, is my handwriting that bad?
I couldn't quite get it, no. I got the Crockway portion.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Chris Crookham. I live at 1957 East Mortimer Drive in Boise, Idaho. I also work in Caldwell, Idaho, 301 warehouse in the seed industry, and I'm here to oppose this zoning change. I believe it will create added burdens to the surrounding farms without any assurances that farmers will be able to operate and plan for their future. It will increase services needed for the area and increase taxes for the county. It will also place a heavy layer of future increased taxes upon the citizens of Cuna. I think Senator Lakey minimizes the impact to the surrounding area with these patchworks of estate homes. I am interested in knowing where is the agricultural land that Ada County is going to look to protect. So let's start with the lack of assurances to farmers to protect their farming businesses and property rights through the right to farm. In recent hearing before this board, there was a good deal of talk about the protections of the right to farm. Excuse me, I get very nervous speaking. I want to make it clear that this law is not a silver bullet. There is nothing stopping a neighbor from hiring a lawyer and taking a farming neighbor to court. According to a recent released book, Empty Fields, Empty Promises, thanks for following me along with my slides. I forgot I had those there. Sole proprietor farmers, and that's farmers who operate by their own name and personhood, are the least likely of any type to win in right to farm cases. they have less than a 50% chance protecting their right to farm and their property rights. Idaho's right to farm, like other states, does not protect land from urban sprawl, nor does it protect property rights broadly. In the state of Iowa, this lack of protection was so evident that changes were made so that Iowa's right to farm laws authorize counties to designate, and this is key, agricultural areas and zoning ordinances to protect agriculture. So this is where I believe Senator Leahy is minimizing the impact of estate lots. And this is where I'm interested in finding out what areas the county is going to protect. So let's talk about the hidden costs that are overlooked for the county with spot zoning of large estate lots in agricultural areas. I don't have time for the full list, but I think irrigation might be a good example. Let's look at testimony from the Pioneer Irrigation District that serves Canyon County. And if you look at the screen, you'll see the increase of the average of overtime per season from the mid-1990s of 40 hours to between 400 to 500 hours currently. I've got 6 sentences.
If you could wrap it up.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is due to a long list of problems the irrigation district encounters due to growth, especially with trespassing. These are also challenges that farmers face on a daily basis. Secondly, when rural estate lots opt out of paying for irrigation water to use their newly acquired well water, it increases the irrigation bill for farmers and increases the dependence on the ever-decreasing aquifer. So I urge you to consider what these patchwork of estate farms are doing. And I also urge you to consider that the citizens of Kuna are paying city taxes and state taxes, and I don't believe they're fully represented in some of the impact area decisions. So that's.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Kim?
Chris. It's Chris.
Chris.
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, Ted Vanderschaff.
Leon, could you put that first map up that you had in your staff report, please? If that's possible?
Is that here?
Yeah, that one, great, perfect. Hello, Commissioners, Ted Vanderschaff, 3633 West Green Lane. I operate the dairy on Green Lane adjacent to this applicant's parcel. You know, I've been here testifying for these topics before. This, as the previous person said, this is going to affect agriculture in the area. We have the dairy there. We've had many nuisance calls. We believe there a lot of them are coming from, you know, the adjacent neighbors already in the current subdivision. I don't want to make this personal with those neighbors. Most of them are lovely neighbors. The applicants themselves have been great neighbors to us. But, you know, as far as them putting in Bridal Ridge, that was a very slow and arduous process. We watched, you know, a number of things not quite come to fruition as we expected. Since then, we've had a lot of complaints with the dairy. Those houses sit directly adjacent to my corrals, which you can see in the map. And, you know, I guess we feel the RUT, while the impact area is over top of us, we feel RUT here is just not a good fit. You know, the land actually is not production agriculture once you zone this to RUT. 5-acre lots is not production. You may be able to grow grass, you may be able to grow pumpkins, but for our productive uses, myself and all my neighbors, which all have letters in opposition on this case, do not feel that this is usable land for production ag anymore. And that's actually what the testifier before me was saying as well. From our perspective, this creates a nuisance and a hardship. Senator Leahy said that this is just a small 4-lot subdivision. The problem is when you implement, when you approve this one, then we end up having another one and another one and another one, which is what we've had on Green Lane. We had Bridal Ridge, it was 9 lots, plus a house is 10. We just got London Bridge a couple weeks ago. We were here, you approved 8 lots, 5-acre lots. So now all of a sudden we have 12 new lots if you approve this one as well. And the pressure on our dairy with those lots, is immense. You heard the gentleman speaking about my dirty dairy and my dirty road. All it takes is one of those homes. We talked about high density. We've heard about high density coming in. I talked to the city of Kuna. I talked to one of their assistant planners. I've talked to one of the councilmen. There is no urgent desire for Kuna to annex or to come our way. They do not have sewer. They don't even want to grow the city boundaries. They have enough open land within their own city current boundaries to utilize. They don't need to annex and to move the city boundaries. And you can call those city councilmen, Greg McPherson is who I spoke to, but I'm sure the mayor would testify to that as well. There is no urgent need. That was a lot of the argument at the P&Z meeting, that we need to put 5-acre lots here now because we don't want high-density homes to come, instead. There's just no pressure. Instead, I have my dairy here. We're trying to operate. You guys are going to potentially approve more homes. These are going to be large estates. People with large estates have money. They push back on guys like me because I make their road dirty and upset them. It's just not a good fit. They should not go together. We were there first. I understand laws change, but my rights shouldn't be affected because they want to put in a house. So
Okay.
that's all.
Okay,
Any
thank
questions?
you. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you. Vincent Blommer.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Vincent Blubber. I live on 4555 West Green Lane, Kuna, Idaho. The biggest issue that I have is there was an agreement made between the neighbors and the county on this plat. And that's the biggest issue that I have. That my understanding, the Brattle Ridge subdivision was based, the smaller lots were based on having this open space. Now you're changing those parameters later on. So we agreed to this subdivision based on these parameters. Now we are here tonight again, readdressing these parameters, lowering these requirements. And there's nothing in the comp plan that doesn't keep this 20 acres from being 10-acre parcels, keep it into rural residential. And Mr. Lakey mentioned a couple of different subdivisions in the area that have smaller areas, smaller lots. Those subdivisions are on non-agricultural areas. So it makes a little more sense. This is farmable land, and it has been farmed. So, and a 5-acre parcel is kind of a joke to consider agriculture. It really is. It's really hard to farm 5 acres when you put a house on it. So,
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission? Any questions? Okay, well, thank you. Okay, that concludes the people who signed up, and I'm looking at the audience, and is there anyone else that wishes to testify? How about you marshals? Okay, I'm just joking. All right. If there's no one else that wishes to testify, then we'll ask the applicant if you want to make a rebuttal. You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, again, for the record, Todd Lakey, Land Use Attorney with Lakey Villegas Law, address 141 East Carlton Avenue, Meridian, Idaho. Commissioners, just a couple points. The comments, again, from Mr. Odie were discussed. They were inaccurate as far as the existing drain field that is compliant. It's been tested. It was also reviewed as part of the NP study that was done for this property and the 4-acre parcels to make sure that those things fit with that drain field. Kathy Odie's testimony was also inaccurate regarding ACHD. As Leon pointed out, my clients initially preferred not to have to widen the property. They did request that with ACHD, but that request was denied. And they were required to widen and move the power poles, and that's what they did. In this case, they'd also comply with the conditions of ACHD that are being placed on them. Commissioners, again, we're talking about 4 5-acre parcels. This is a minimum minimal impact. It allows small-scale ag, and that ag is defined by CUNA's comprehensive plan. And their definition and their designation for this property now, which is different than it was before, is ag. And their ag includes 5-acre parcels because they recognize that small-scale ag can occur on these 5-acre parcels, as well as the large-scale ag in the impact area, where ultimately growth is supposed to occur. This property is not zoned for production ag, even currently. It's zoned RR, as was noted. So it's zoned for residential. The question is RUT appropriate? And it is, based on the 5-acre parcels and the comprehensive plan's compliance with the City of CUNA's comprehensive plan. I would note, Mr. Vanderskoff mentioned he'd spoken with the planner at the City of CUNA. Commissioners, you know that development is driven by developers, extension of services, extension of projects. And Idaho has a strong economy. I suspect it's going to get stronger with the change in administration at the federal level. And those things are simply driven by that economy. The key being, again, we're in an impact area where this growth is supposed to occur. And the preference for 5-acre parcels is preferable to waiting for city services and getting much higher density. Mr. Vanderskoff has talked about selling his property to developers when they get out there. That's okay if that's his plan. But that doesn't comply with the comprehensive plan currently. The current comprehensive plan supports 5-acre parcels on this property. Commissioners, we addressed the traffic issues. We agree with the findings of fact that have been prepared by Mr. Letson. I would also note there was an additional letter from Troy Bahunin, who I believe was the planner that they spoke to at the City of CUNA in support personally of the application. And if your inclination was to grant his request for a right to farm acknowledgement, we would be agreeable to that. Commissioners, these lots are consistent with the pattern that's developed out there from 1-acre lots adjacent to 2 acres to 5 acres. It's even in line with the 10-acre parcels that exist. This is a pocket of residential estate development, and this is consistent with that. So we're consistent not only with the comprehensive plan, but the character of the development that's occurred, along with those that RUT zoning for London Bridge that was approved in close proximity to this project. Commissioners, again, no negative agency responses, so we meet all of those conditions. Again, we think this is in line with the comprehensive plan and more appropriate than waiting for that higher density. And I would emphasize again in conclusion, some of those comments were the old non-farm subdivision had a requirement to wait for city services and do higher density. We're not supposed to be evaluated under that old non-farm ordinance. We're evaluated under the current comprehensive plan and the current zoning ordinance, which we comply with. So commissioners, I would ask for your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commission?
No.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, is this property in your legislative district?
So, Commissioner Beck and Chairman Beck and Commissioner Davidson. So I was referred by my other job that I happen to be doing more of this time of year. But the great thing about public service in the legislature is that we're citizen legislators. We all have day jobs, and this is my day job. I'm not here in my Senate capacity. Commissioner Davidson, I will answer your question. It is in my district.
Just a little bit more on the legislative side, but I'm kind of sympathetic to the argument that maybe the Right to Farm Act just doesn't have enough teeth to enforce it. There's a lot of wiggle room in there for people with money to hire lawyers to just, harass and vex and annoy, and maybe the farmer will be vindicated by the court. You would hope so, but there's still the legal fees that they'd have to pay and the time. And do you feel that there's Any changes that could be done to the Right to Farm Act to strengthen? I mean, in your capacity as a senator, have you had to study that issue or look at it, or has it not really come up for you?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Davidson, I'm a little reluctant to talk about something I'm not here in that capacity, but I'll do my best to answer your question. That Right to Farm Act was put in place with the involvement of agriculture, ag entities, ag operators. That's how that language was developed. Perhaps there's room for improvement over the years, but it lawfully protects agricultural operators that operate in accordance with the law. And that's the plain and simple of it. If there's room for tightening or improvement, I've heard generic comments, but not so much there or from folks like Farm Bureau and others that say we need to improve it. But if there's room for improvement, I'm open to it. But it does provide protection for lawful operations.
Does it have a provision if you prevail under that, you're entitled to attorney's fees?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Davidson, I am not sure if it does. That would be perhaps an improvement if it doesn't.
Are there any more questions relative to the application?
Sure. One person testified, there's some mention of deed restrictions for open space. Do you know what that was in reference to?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Davidson, maybe they phrased it incorrectly. What we have is the old non-farm subdivision ordinance that provided for open space that it, according to that plat note, be maintained as open space until those conditions were met. So it's really a plat note, not a deed restriction. And again, the ordinance is no longer there, and we're in the impact area for the city of Kuna. That ordinance is no longer in effect, and frankly, folks don't want high density on this property. So it no longer applies, but I think that's probably what they were talking about, is that old plat note under the old ordinance.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Just a comment. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Leahy, but the Right to Farm Act is a good portion of it is education for the people who are purchasing property, because a lot of people don't even understand that, one, that it exists, and two, what their obligation is in relation to the Right to Farm Act. So you indicated that you're willing to put that in the purchase agreement so that people will, in fact, if they didn't know before, know what their obligation is vis-a-vis the agriculture around them, correct?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Daly, that's correct. You know, you would assume that some of those that testified talked about it. You drive by the dairy, you know it's there. But we'd be happy to do what Mr. Behunin described, which is that right to farm acknowledgement. Basically, it talks about the right to farm. It educates them in regards to that, and then also the fact that there are existing agricultural uses in the area that are lawfully entitled to operate. So it does go toward that education piece that you talked about, but it also has their signature at the bottom that they've been educated.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, are there any documents needed to be added to the file before I close the hearing?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioner, I'll add my presentation, Mr. Leahy's presentation, and the pictures and report from ACHD provided by Ms. Odie as exhibits to the record.
Do we already have the record for the exhibits provided by Ms. Crookham?
My apologies. We also will add Ms. Kirkham's presentation. Sorry, I forgot that one. So
I didn't.
I'm glad. Thanks.
Okay. So no other documents to be added to the record then?
Correct.
Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing on application 2023-01-060 ZCD ASVAC PR, Feather Creek Ranch Ridge subdivision. Okay, now it's in our hands. Is there any further discussion, or who'd like to kick it off?
Mr. Chairman, based on what we've heard, the record, and what I've read, I'm inclined to support the application and the recommendation of the staff. And I think even the planning and zoning, had all the members of the planning and zoning been there, it probably would have been approved at planning and zoning as well.
May have, but a 2-2 thing is a little, you know, and it's nice that staff can count on us for supporting their recommendations. You have anything?
Well, I think there are some obviously legitimate concerns from the neighbors and the farming community. And I think it is likely this development will probably attract more to that neighborhood. But for me, after listening to all the testimony, I don't think that the impact rises to the level that I would deny this application. So I think I'm inclined to vote for it as well, and would certainly hope that maybe the Idaho legislature can review the Right to Farm Act and maybe look at some additional protections in there, because it does sound like there is room for improvement.
Yes, I would concur with that. In fact, I think that we are going to go through some hearings in the future on these agriculture designated areas, are we not? And I believe some of the people here that testified in opposition to this actually spoke in favor of that agriculture designation area, and that may be some comfort to them, because we appreciate everybody that shows up to talk. But anyway, with that, I'll accept the motion.
Chairman, Commissioners, as you make your motion, we would request tabling for revised findings and final approval documents to the 4th of February. We have a development agreement to prepare with legal and some other aspects of that, so.
I noticed your file was a little short.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, February 4th.
Just as I know most of the people have gone, but that agricultural protection areas that we've designated in our ordinance now, we need people on that board, so I would request that the agriculture community come forward with people who are interested in serving on that board.
Yes, we have to create a board to do that, and that'd be helpful. Okay, I'll accept the motion, and it'll be the table to February the 4th to get a more revised findings of fact and conclusions and the requirements. Okay, is there a motion? Go ahead.
I move that we approve application 2023-0106-ZC-DA-S-VAC-PR Feather Creek Ridge subdivision, and table it for revised finding and fact and conclusions of law till the February 4th open business meeting.
Yep. Is there a second to the motion?
Well, I would request the additional condition of the separate right to farm acknowledgement form that was discussed previously. Are you amenable to that?
Absolutely. They already agreed to that, but I don't have a problem putting it in the motion.
All right, then I'll second that.
All right. With that, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is any further discussion? We can't have a tie vote because there's 3 of us. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you. Okay, next up, I'll open the public hearing on the change of Ada County Title 10 and collection of the impact fees.
Yes, Chairman, Commissioners, pretty brief presentation on this one. As you'll see from the ordinance that was attached to the agenda, it's a simple update to that Title 10 code section that regulates impact fees for fire districts. And we're asking to, essentially, it's the section related to the Joint Advisory Committee and the previous Title 10 reviewed and approved by that board. It was inadvertently left out. And so legal thankfully noticed it very quickly and asked us to put it back in. And so this amendment will add the 10-1-16 Joint Advisory Committee language to the Title 10 of our code. So.
Okay. Richard, would you like to testify? No one else is here.
Mr. Chairman, I have no additional comments to add.
Okay.
Sharon?
Yes.
Could you just maybe go over what these impact fees are going to accomplish for the fire district?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioners, so impact fees can be used for capital costs, so new stations, new equipment. They cannot be used for additional staffing or increasing that type of level of service. They really can only be used for capital costs. And so with each fire district, they're required to prepare what's called a capital improvement study. Identifies additional stations, general locations often of where they'll be. It's usually a 10-year horizon in terms of how long those fees will, well, 8 years initially, I think up to 10 to 11 years ultimately if you have good cause to continue using those funds. And so it's a 10-year growth plan for any fire district. And so that's what the purpose of those impact fees are, is to fund additional stations and other hard cost improvements necessary to provide levels of service.
And once a fire district adopts those, Ada County's job is just to incorporate those into our ordinance.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioner, so we collect these fees as a part of any of our building permits, and we have an interlocal agreement with each fire district to transfer those funds to them so that they, again, can use them for the things they identified in their capital improvement plans.
And impact fees are a one-time cost to new development.
Correct, yeah. The classic phrase is growth paying for growth. It's the idea that growth should not impact existing levels of service for a community. And so these fees are collected to ensure that the current level of service for the community is maintained as it continues to grow.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Do I need to close the public hearing on this item?
Yes,
Public hearing will be closed on the application for Ada County Title 10 and collection of fire impact fees for Ada County. That public hearing is closed. Any more comments? Is there a motion?
I move to pursuant to Idaho Code 67-8201 and Idaho Code 631311A, the board to approve the amendments to Title 10 of Ada County Code, collection of fire impact fees for Eagle. Do we have to mention the names of the individuals?
No, this is just a general reference to the fire district section of our code. So.
To amend the general fire district section of the code.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that, just with the discussion that really, I think once the Eagle Fire, or whatever fire district imposes fees, Ada County's job is pretty much just administrative or ministerial. If citizens want to debate or object to impact fees, you really have to go to the government body who's implementing them. This body, our body, Ada County, will be debating impact fees at a later date, but that would be a good time for the public to come if they have questions or want to testify for and against. But as far as the fire district's concerned, once they've voted for it, we don't have a lot of say in the matter. We just need to incorporate that into our ordinance.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.